what is a full moon and what is a new moon on your model?
Probably like a magnetic cycle, and just like the center of a barrel cell image of a magnet.
I think it's probably like a magnetic cycle, just like the center of a ferrocell spiral. Image of a magnet, it's just black in the middle. It's actually pure inertia, not just a little. In the ferrocell image of a magnet, it actually goes into its inertial state, then charges back up. It becomes like etherically displaced.
Yeehaw!
Yeah! You start to see it charge up once more, and it goes back like it did before. Once it becomes like etherically spaced, you see it charge up and take its place. Oh, shucks. Ain't that so? That's how moon phases work for him. Pass the dresser. In the magnet's heart, centrifugal divergence flies, centripetal convergence pulls, defying all science. Etheric whispers sing, light and shadow blend, magnetic cycles spin, where physics seems to end. In the ferrocell image of a magnet, it actually goes into its inertial state, then charges back up. It becomes like etherically displaced. Yeehaw! Grab your partner, swing 'em round, magnetic cycles up and down. Either song in the air, hillbilly science everywhere, 'cause it's like etherically displaced. Yeehaw! Yo, belly on up to the Witsit word salad buffet. Who has light vinaigrettes? The Jugger Ranch.
Then charges back up, and once it becomes like etherically displaced again, you start to see it charge up throughout a cycle, and it goes back.
Welcome, everybody. I hope that you're ready. I hope that you're primed for the Witsit analysis of the debate from last Thursday between him and Sealion Prime. Now, I did not. I watched about maybe the last half of it, and it was pretty good. And we're just going to review it here. Sealion Prime is kicking around in the wings here. Might bring him on for a little bit, but we're going to get warmed up. We're going to get warmed up by just going with a few of them here. I've got it ready. There it is. Now you won't see him. You won't see him because it's. I'm going to play a little faster because it's on Discord, but you'll hear him.
Globe exclusive to the flat Earth.
Well, it doesn't. It applies specifically to satellites, right? And then that is if satellites exist and they're in the positions that they are, and they're moving in the elliptical orbits that they are, it requires the existence of something that we call space, right? And they have to be moving at a certain speed at a certain distance.
No,
that's the only way the
requires space.
Yeah,
no. Satellites disprove your model. It sounds like it just requires
distance.
Satellites
disprove your model. Satellites disprove your model. No, they don't, Witsit. How do they achieve orbit? You can't even explain that. You can't explain us anything, Witsit. Oh my gosh. He's actually said that.
Disprove the mainstream model, though.
All right, let's go, man. I got 2 hours before work. How do they disprove the mainstream model?
Well, for one, if they're using elliptical paths, I thought it was supposed to be a linear path where it's free falling. Why do you have to account for an elliptical change in direction?
Well, what's the problem with an elliptical path being in free fall?
Your model claims that it's falling in a linear path.
According to what, man? Kepler's laws?
Relativity claim.
I'm not an expert on orbital mechanics, man, but I don't think that that's correct.
It is correct, right? So very distinctly, your model.
You know it's correct because Witsit humbly said that it was correct. You know, anytime he says it, it's right because he is the Witsit.
Used to claim that the Earth orbits around the sun because gravity's a force and the sun's pulling it in a circular path around it. But that was disproven with Michelson-Morley. Your model had to update it and say, well, no, actually gravity's not a force and the sun is not actually moving, or the Earth is not actually moving in a circular path. It's free falling in a linear path through the geodesic path of the curvature of space-time.
And none of that disproves orbit.
So the same thing has to apply to satellites. If quote unquote gravity is the causal mechanism, relativistically it has to be free falling in a straight path.
Well, you're misunderstanding the idea of straight and geodesic. You know the difference, right?
I'm not misunderstanding it. I understand that you're going to say that it is doing different things from different reference frames. So
I'm just saying that
doesn't change my point.
What is a geodesic? What is the definition of a geodesic?
It's the shortest path, like for example on a sphere. Really simply, your model claims that it's different reference frames.
Yeah, but I don't think you're quite getting it though, because a geodesic is a curve, is a straight line. It's a generalization of a straight line in curved spacetime. In the same way, a great circle. Yeah,
Literally what he just said.
So
that doesn't change my point though.
But I don't really see how Michelson-Morley applies here either.
Michelson-Morley debunked the claim that there's an actual circular orbit or change of direction. That's because you would detect it with.
No, dude, Michelson-Morley. It's Michelson-Morley. Here's what I've discovered in my research on his name. His name isn't spelled like Michael. It's spelled. It's missing a letter. It looks a bit like Mickle instead of Michael, but he's from not America. When he came to America, from what I've seen, the people pronounced it Michelson because that's how it looks to an American, and how it was pronounced in the old world. I forget exactly what country he's from, but he lived most of his life in America. To my knowledge, it was mostly pronounced Michelson. So, but Michelson-Morley, see, they never ever get the intention of the test correct. The intention was testing the effect of the ether as the Earth moved through it. Right? It wasn't testing if the Earth moved. That was known. It was mentioned in the first two sentences.
The interferometry, but they didn't. They didn't detect the orbit with interferometry, so we changed the definition of orbit. That's where.
No, we didn't change the definition of orbit. Orbit is moving around in an ellipse around the sun. That's orbit. Right? And he's going to play word games in his definition here because that's all that he has. He doesn't have measurements. This is the way of the flurf when it comes to trying to prove flat Earth. They don't ever talk about flat Earth. They only ever talk about the globe. Think about that. If I wanted to tell somebody, here's how I know the Earth is a globe, I would not talk about flat Earth. I would not talk about concave Earth. I would not talk about ninth dimensional triangle Earth. I'd talk about the globe. I'd say, well, here's measurements of the curvature. Here's a photograph of it. Here's evidence that gravity exists, that mass attracts mass in our reference frame. Play word games. And that mass attracting mass would cause a large structure that's not spherical to collapse into a spherical shape. Those are the types of things that I talk about. I wouldn't say, oh, let's just spend an hour, 2 hours talking about some other model. That's not how you establish the positive shape of the Earth. They never do that because they know they don't have anything. And so this whole conversation that Witsit is having here is all 4, 5, 6 steps removed from flat Earth. It's so far removed that he's actually using the globe to try to debunk another version of the globe as if that somehow supports flat Earth. It doesn't. In the end, it's a first law of Flurf. It's a contradiction of flat Earth.
If you read Einstein's work, right, he actually originally calls it a rotation around the sun, and that was later edited to change to revolution to make a distinction between rotation, because the claim is now that the orbit is not in a rotational circular path, it is in a linear path.
It's in an elliptical path within a reference frame. See, he's trying to add one layer away from it as if that fixes things, as if that obfuscation solves a problem for him. It doesn't.
On the Earth, and that's why we can't detect its movement.
I'm not sure that's true. So there's a couple.
I am positive it's true, though.
Okay, but so let's talk about the development of Einstein's theory and the motivations that Einstein had for developing special relativity, and then how that pertains to general relativity. So
no. We don't need to go all the way to this really meta thing.
We got to talk about it because
Well, we got to talk about what I just said first. Wait. We don't need to just deflect to.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. Let's let Witsit and this guy go, please. Let's not interrupt.
We don't need to deflect to what was the motivation. Okay, no, we don't, because what I'm saying is very simple, and this is the easiest way. Okay, do you agree that we can use
Doesn't mean you get to interrupt, bro. Let's keep it cool, guys. Come on.
Let's keep it cool. Keep it civil. All right. So how do you want to do this, man? You want to do?
I'm just going to help you. I'm going to help you understand how you're wrong. Okay. So do you?
The arrogance. I'm going to help you understand how you're wrong. No, you're not, Austin. Austin, you're not. You're not the one. You're not Neo. You don't understand these things better than everybody else, Austin. That's so pompous of you. I'm going to explain it to you because I'm so ever so much more smarter than you. No, Austin, you're not. You're not the smart one. You're not Neo. You're not the one that understands this better than everybody else. You have cherry-picked things. That's all you have.
Do you agree that according to your paradigm, we can detect the rotation of Earth with interferometry?
The rotation of Earth with interferometry, yes. The orbit around the sun, no.
We can detect the rotation of the Earth with interferometry. Yeah, good job, Sealion.
Okay, so that means there's a difference between the rotation and the orbit. So
yes.
We have Michelson-Gale-Pearson or a ring laser gyro, right? And that's claimed to detect the rotation of the Earth using interferometry, which is, of course, a fringe shift of the intersection of light. So because the Earth is rotating and changing direction, then the light's able to detect that motion through the interferometry. So we know that we can use interferometry to detect an object moving in a circular path, right?
How does that work? Can you describe to me what the Sagnac effect is within relativity? Can you steel man that for me?
There isn't even an agreed upon definition of the Sagnac effect in relativity. There's up to 13 different proposed interpretations of it. There's not even an academic consensus as to. There's not even.
So you can't steel man it, huh?
An academic consensus as to what the Sagnac effect is relativistically. That is not the point. Can you answer my question? Do you agree that we can use interferometry to detect an object moving in a curved path?
So that's
No. See how he swapped that in? He swapped in rotation for curved path. Quite the little swap in there. You see, it's... I think a lot of people might miss that. He's swapping rotation for orbit, curved path. Because he's got to deceive people.
This is kind of... I'm not just going to let you lead me down that path, though. That's the thing. I want to argue in good faith with you.
Good catch, Sealion.
Here. So there's a couple things that are mixed up here. There's a couple things that are mixed up here, bro. So the first thing is that you kind of say that it's simple, and I don't know if that's the case for anyone else in the room, but I don't think the intersection between interferometry and Michelson-Morley and the development of special and general relativity is simple for anyone. If it's simple for you, that's awesome, but I don't think it's something that you can just roll into some common.
Stop trying to appeal to the audience and just answer the question.
Serious, bro. Quit with the games, bro.
I'll get to answering the question.
Man, it's a good thing that Witsit has all the cheerleaders there.
But I think we need to understand the contextualization of the theory of relativity and then use that to develop.
Yeah, we're good, bro.
Beast, with all due respect, man, I'm not sure that you are, but let's talk about what motivated.
Stop with the homonyms, bro.
Well, this is what's so weird, right? You just admitted. Wait, time out, Sealion. You admitted.
So, look at this. All right, Sealion is on a Flat Earther Discord server. They're not terrible here. This isn't the Flat Earth 24/7 Discord server, but you've got Sealion's trying to talk, and this other guy is just jumping in with all sorts of random, right, fallacy accusations. And then instead of Witsit saying, hey, stop doing that, let him finish his sentence, Witsit has to jump in with his own stuff.
That we can detect the rotation of the Earth with interferometry. So when I ask the question, so you agree we can use interferometry to detect an object moving in a curved path?
No, different thing, you scum.
It's really just a redundant question because you've already answered it. The answer is yes. And if you say
no. Orbit, curved path, is not rotation. Do you think? Here's the thing. I don't know. Is he just such a filthy scum that he's intentionally doing this bait and switch swap in here? Or is he so dumb that he doesn't understand that they're not the same thing? I don't know. Tell me what you think.
If you say no, then what you're saying is that you can't detect the rotation of the Earth with interferometry.
No, that's actually not the case, because do you understand that there's an important difference? This is where we need to get into, and all due respect, man, but I need to see the sources that back up your claim regarding the 13 different interpretations and the lack of consensus. Just dump those in the chat. I'm sure Shane has them in his database somewhere. If Beast or someone else could do that, that'd be fucking awesome.
No, dude, just have a back and forth.
Mr. Good Faith. Yeah, if you know what you're talking about, you shouldn't have to request all this extra stuff and then deflecting the conversation into a conversation you want to have. Like you've been asked a direct question and you're obfuscated. Just stick to the point.
No.
So Sealion asked a direct question: can you Steelman the Sagnac effect? Right. So somehow Sealion has to answer to some question. It was Witsit that didn't answer the question. Instead, he deflected to, there's 13 definitions of it. And Sealion, rightly so, completely within his expectation, says, I'm going to need to see that evidence. You know what we haven't had here yet? What we're going to need to have is this one here. Let me make sure that it's coming through when I hit it. How about this one?
You make a positive claim of specificity, you have the burden of proof of specificity.
There you go. The burden of proof of specificity, you said 13. You should have them ready to go. Witsit? You should have them ready to go.
I'm not, because I need to contextualize the Sagnac effect. There's two things at play here. There's the historical...
For yourself or for us?
There's historical narrative of the development of relativity and how that intersects with Michelson-Morley. There's the theoretical foundation of special and general relativity as it pertains to interferometry and the Sagnac effect, and how that relates to Michelson-Morley and Gale Pearson. And then there's
the context to make them happy.
And only then can I, in good faith, answer that question. So we really need to address all of those points.
Okay, so this is really simple. This is really simple stuff. I already gave you the answer. Like I'm still manning your position, okay? And you're basically saying you don't understand your position. Like, okay, well, I'm still manning it. And the still man of the position is, yes, we can detect the rotation of the Earth, right? Because you have a closed loop. You want me to actually explain this to you?
Yes, you actually should. That's the point of asking for a Steelman.
Sagnac effect is a phenomenon where you have two beams traveling, light quote unquote, traveling in opposite directions around a rotating closed loop. And because of that, you have a phase difference because of the rotation, meaning one beam takes longer to complete the loop than the other. And that results in a measurable interference pattern when the beams recombine. Okay. Cool.
Hold on.
I know.
Hey, look at Earth is Life just posted a 24-hour picture of Antarctica, or video. They'll ignore it.
That's correct. Okay, so your model claims, yes, we can utilize interferometry to detect the rotation of the Earth, but we cannot utilize it to detect the orbit. Now, at the time, they assumed, of course, we'll be able to use it to detect the orbit because we can use interferometry to detect, but then they discovered, oh, wait a minute, we're not detecting the orbit. There should be a fringe shift consistent with 30 kilometers a second, but we're not seeing that.
No. In a rotating interferometer, it's measuring a loop, right? It's measuring rotation. In an orbit, there is a rotation. It takes a full year, but you need to have a reference point outside the Earth. So, and then there's a secondary rotation, the daily rotation. So, here's how you could, using a rotation sensitive interferometer, you could measure the annual rotation of the Earth because, say, local solar midnight, right, middle of the night, halfway between dusk and dawn. Or halfway between sunset and sunrise, however you want to do that. On day one, you do that, you find a zenith, right? Pick whatever zenith is straight up from you, a star, identify that star. A day later, at local solar midnight, that star will have shifted by about 1 degree. Another day later, about 1 degree. Another day later, about 1 degree. You do the same thing by using a rotational interferometer, and you use that star as a reference point over the course of an entire year, and you can use that rotation and measure that rotation. You're also going to get the daily 24-hour rotation. You subtract those out, and then you'll get 360 degrees over the course of 365 days, 365 and a quarter days. So you could, but you need an external reference. And that's the whole point of all of these things is they were trying to not use an external reference. in some of these things, like Michelson-Morley was saying, well, they thought that there was such thing as absolute space, because that's part of the idea of the ether, of the undulating theory of light. So they didn't measure that. So anyway, let's see how he goes here.
So what did they do? They then revised the interpretation of the orbits, okay? And the way they did this was they said, well, actually, turns out gravity's not an actual force that's acting on the Earth, pulling it in around the sun in a circular path.
So all this is obfuscation within a reference frame, mass attracts mass. To reanalyze gravity at one level deeper doesn't change any of this at all. Right? He's just trying to obfuscate here to make it, because all of the things he's about to talk about in this relativity, they're all accurate. They're all completely empirically verified. But what he's trying to do for his audience is obfuscate away from it so that he can apply incredulity.
Actually the bending and warping of space-time, and Earth is free-falling in a linear path. So when you're on the Earth, it's just moving straight in its orbit. So you're not going to be able to use interferometry while on Earth to measure the motion, because it's not moving in a curved path.
Sorry, yeah, one sec here. I just some people want to come over here, so let me just real quick grab the link to this.
He's got to get his globe gangsters.
So it's funny. He's in here bravely talking with other people here, and a whole bunch of flatties interrupting. You can see right here, these right here, 3 people, none of them Witsit, none of them the moderator that you can see on screen right now. 3. Right? So, and they're like, oh, you got to get your globe gang. I don't know what he was doing, but why not? He's getting dogpiled here.
All right, it's cool, man. It's cool. So here's the problem.
Signal, call the Globers in. Help. Hey, you remember when I was in your room the other day and you guys just drilled me all day and I gave you answers?
Yeah, man.
How about you do it?
No, I'm trying to do it, but I need to so there's a couple things here, right? So I liked your description of interferometry and the Sagnac effect. That's completely correct in the context of relativity. What I dispute is your historical narrative of the development of relativity as a function of Michelson-Morley. And I dispute
that's what Einstein said.
Yeah.
Do we need to quote Einstein?
So, I have a paper, Einstein in Chicago, relating to this. Let me try to find that for you.
Well, do you have Einstein's paper? You mean just quote Einstein? I'll quote Einstein from memory.
I'll quote Einstein, and it's back to typical Witsit. Quoting is somebody is to him superior to an actual experiment, actual measurements.
Primary source talks.
Einstein is the primary source of Einstein's work. Yeah.
Right. He doesn't want to hear that.
So look. So do you recognize that there is a contradiction between the way Einstein talks about Michelson-Morley in the primary sources?
What a vague, non-specific question.
I think it's a pretty simple question. Is there a contradiction between the way Einstein... Okay, let me make it more specific.
Why are you obfuscating, bro?
I'm not.
I mean, dude, you're beating around the bush constantly, dude. Take the L.
Obviously, this is the show. So, maybe let's just keep it as a 1v1.
This
is good for the stream.
Yeah, let's let Witsit and Sealion go at it, guys, for a few minutes.
But you are deflecting this.
Yeah, good job. SE Montreal, that guy with the kind of heavy voice, that's SE Montreal. So he's did good job for him there.
Pretty simple.
No for talking. We got a debate down here.
Just to clarify, what are you disputing? Are you disputing that Einstein, one of the primary motivations for Einstein proposing relativity was to adhere or address the Michelson-Morley?
Yes, that's what I'm disputing.
Okay, so let's quote Einstein then. He said, in my student years, I came across the peculiar, this is somewhat paraphrases from memory, the peculiar experiment of Michelson-Morley. Mm-hmm. Right? And this was one of the first things that led me down the path of special relativity. If we then go look, that's like a quote from Einstein. He said that one of the first things that led him down the path to create special relativity was Michelson-Morley. He says that exactly. Then we go read. Yes, he does. I just quoted him. Then we go. That's a speech he gave in Tokyo University. I'll drop the citation in a second. So we go look at special relativity, and it perfectly supports that, because the entire point is he's explaining this was an astonishing effect. Basically, we expected to find a time difference, a friendship based on the 30 kilometers per second orbit of the Earth. We didn't see that. Then what happened was he explains this in his actual special relativity paper, right? So he says, then Lorenz and Fitzgerald came in.
All right, just for reference, Witsit is so unfamiliar with how papers work, how scientific papers work, that he thinks that this book is the paper on special relativity and general relativity. This book he thinks is the paper. He's about to quote from this book that he just called the paper on special relativity.
And they came up with a solution to this difficulty. And the solution, although it is different in interpretation in relativity, it is the correct answer according to relativity. And that is that there was a contraction that resulted in just a sufficient amount.
Oh my gosh. And he always gets this wrong. So this is all right, here's the book. I don't think I have what he's saying right now underlined here, but this is what Witsit likes to talk about. But I think, let's see here, there it is. First, to introduce the hypothesis, the theory section in section 13. All right, hold on. This is 16. So he says, I don't know if I'm going to be able to dig this out in a decent enough time. No, that wasn't it there. 13 was too short. Check DM, says Larry Scott. All right, checking DM. Yeah. All right. So I'll address that for a second here first. So, all right. An aside is coming here. Brian Leakey 2 days ago posted a video of me. And I do believe it was in response to I think it was either Dustin Nemos or more likely, what's his name, that other doofwad on Modern Day Debate, that the debate didn't even happen because he made some particular accusation. What was his name? Anyway, he so this guy he made that accusation. I told Ryan, the moderator, that it's not going to happen. You need to get him out. I'm like, I'm doing this. So Brian Leakey took that video of me being very angry at somebody making that false accusation and put a mustache on me, a little Charlie Chaplin-esque mustache, if you know what I'm talking about. Then removed my voice and put over it some German-speaking voice with some subtitles. And what he put on there isn't really relevant. The point being that the parallels that he was making between me and this mustached person was what he was making. So Matthew Hakeem, yes, I think that was it. Thank you. So I did not make any complaints to YouTube on it, but he did a full video on it. I think somebody sent me a screen grab of it. Then he did a short of it, removing the mustache part. And I think at least 5 people, I didn't count, at least 5 people sent me messages about it. I watched the screen capture, so a non-YouTube copy of it I watched. And then later, after that video was removed by YouTube, and he maybe got a strike for it even, he re-uploaded a short of it that didn't have the mustache. And so yesterday I was talking with Brian. I said, that wasn't actually cool. I was kind of surprised because Brian and I have an okay relationship. We get along fine. And so I was surprised when he did that. And he's like, "Oh, dude, that was so funny. How can you not see that's funny?" Like, that wasn't funny. And the fact that you don't know that it wasn't funny and how people would be offended by that, you don't understand how people would be offended by it, is a little bit of a problem for you, Brian. So anyway, I'm not particularly upset by it. I'm not particularly hurt by it, right? Flat earthers do that kind of stuff. They're horrible people. It's not surprising. It was surprising to get that treatment from Brian because of our positive history. But, you know, I've had people have turned south before, interactions with. I had a great series of conversations with Karen B in DMs, and then she went crazy on me. So it happens. Anyway, so I was trying to actually talk with him yesterday. I had to drive to the hardware store. I called him on Discord. He's like 20 minutes. 20 some minutes later, I'm like, you ready? He goes, Nick, give me 15. And that was the last time that he messaged me. I sent him some screenshots from other people, removing their names. He's like, who was it? Who told you? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you who. He's like, how come you reported it to YouTube? I didn't watch it on YouTube. So, anyway, Larry Scott was one of the people that mentioned it. So, oh my, Ion says when a flat earther depicts someone as that guy, they risk making the person more likable for other flat earthers because they like the mustache man so much. Anyway, yeah, so Brian, do better. That wasn't funny. I don't, you know, there's other ways to be funny. That's not it. So, anyway, so there's that. Thank you for mentioning that. And while I'm on an aside, my son is going to Denver, north side of Denver, for around a week in October, visiting his cousin there. And his cousin will be working during the day. So my son and his girlfriend are looking for things to do during the day, during the weekdays, near Denver on the north side. Like, so driving all the way through Denver down to Colorado Springs isn't really an idea because that's just too much traffic. So if you are familiar with the Denver area and what might be kind of cool, where you don't need to get down into the traffic area during a weekday, that's a cool idea. Send me a message, mctoon@mctoon.net, or find me on Facebook or Discord or Twitter. mctoon.net has my links to those things. So Sealion Prime says, I live in the area. Well, if you have some ideas, send them to me. So there is the invite I hinted at in the last stream. So I'll ask this. So we have this Austin Murphy who is saying, send me a photograph of an atom. So I will ask Austin Murphy to pop into the chat here right here, a definition of photograph, right? A definition of photograph, please. Because what I find, and he's offered $1,000, so I find, you know, first of all, the second law of Flurf. I don't know if Austin's a Flurf or not, a flat earther Flurf, or just a science denier Flurf. So, by the way, Flurf is a broader term than just flat earther. It's become that because I've discovered that science deniers of all flavors are very similar. They contradict themselves. So, all right, yeah, that's he says not a cartoon. That is not a definition. Right. Oh, well, I can look up the definition of cartoon. Cartoon is something handwritten on vellum. Right. It's not a very good definition. I don't think you'll accept anything that's not hand drawn on vellum. So be specific. Actually type in, go find a definition for photograph that you will accept and put it in the chat here, right here. Just put it right in here. Don't just be lazy and leave something so vague so that you can say nuh-uh later. And this is the test to you. I'm guessing that you won't want to do that. And when you do that, we're going to find out a little something, something. Right? The SFS player says, did you watch the debate? I don't know what debate you're talking about. Don't know what debate you're talking about at all. So, all right. I'm going to go back to this. Go back to where we were. Austin was about to talk about saving the theory. There it is. It's underlined on this page right here. I don't know if you're going to be able to read it, but I can read it. So here's in this book, Relativity, the Special and General Theory, a book written the year after he published the General Theory of Relativity, so 1916. This book is here. On the other hand, I have purposefully treated the empirical physical foundations of the theory in a stepmotherly fashion, so that readers unfamiliar with physics may not feel like the wanderer who is unable to see the forest for the trees. May the book bring some few happy hours of suggestive thought. December 1916. Albert Einstein. So, all right, is this focused well enough? Tell you what, I can zoom in. Let's do this. Oh yes, we're gonna zoom in, and then something that flurfs don't understand, this camera has manual zoom. I have it in manual mode. All right, so we have although these, I'm going to start up higher here with, although the estimated difference between these two times is exceedingly small, Michelson and Morley performed an experiment involving interference in which the difference should be clearly detectable within the ether theory, the undulating theory of light theory. But the experiment gave a negative result, a fact very perplexing to physicists. Lorentz and Fitzgerald rescued the theory. What theory? The undulating light theory, the ether theory. Rescued the theory from the difficulty by assuming the motion of the body relative to the ether produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion, the amount of contraction being just sufficient to compensate for the difference in time mentioned above. That's what this is talking about. So when rescued the theory in this case is ether, undulating theory of light. That's what that's talking about. But now what will Witsit take that to mean? What will he take that to mean? We shall find out. I think you may already know. I certainly already know. I'll back it up just a tiny bit. We're at 13:16. All right, here we go.
In relativity, it is the correct answer according to relativity, and that is that there was a contraction that resulted in.
Notice that. I'm going to play it one more time. Listen, he says it is the right answer within relativity, and I already read the book. I showed you what he's talking about. Ether. He's talking about ether, not special relativity. Ether. Listen to Austin's words.
And the solution, although it is different in interpretation in relativity, is the correct answer according to relativity. And that is that there was a contraction that resulted in just the sufficient amount of contraction to compensate for the missing time difference observed at Michelson-Morley. So he is literally proposing this as a fundamental explanation to Michelson-Morley.
Nope. He is saying it was proposed by Lorentz and Fitzgerald as a way to save the ether theory. Oh.
The literal paper.
All right. Reddy Geezer 1 says there are rumors that Witsit dropped out of the trip. Do you know if this is true? This is not true. There is no news on that front. Right? You can conjecture all you want, but there is no confirmation of anything either way at this point. They are still going, it seems, back and forth a little bit about the contract. But Will Duffy posted a video today. You could go watch it. It came out today. And it mentioned Witsit in that video, Witsit and Jaron. So that would be the most up-to-date information that I know of. And at that point, he had not backed out. So
about special relativity.
So I need to see that specific source, but here's the problem, and this is why I was referencing the contradiction. So there's a contradiction between the way the younger Einstein in the primary sources talks about it, and between the way that he talks about it in later life. So
and which one would be more accurate? The one that happened closer to the time where he came out with his theory, or the one where he was on his...
It doesn't matter, because it doesn't say what Witsit wants it to say.
No, wait. I want you to tell me when did he contradict special relativity, and specifically
What one relates more to reality?
Let me give you a direct quote that contradicts your interpretation. Here's the primary source. 1 second. I'll just let me export the PDF because I can shoot. 1 sec. So this is a really good paper. I'd recommend everyone read it because it provides a historical contextualization of the degree to which Michelson-Morley influenced Einstein.
I've read that paper. I've already read that paper. The paper claiming that it didn't influence it. I've already read the paper.
Hear him jump in. I read the paper. I already read the paper. He's all hyper. All right, Sealion, can you send me that paper? And we could maybe pull it up in a little bit here. Sealion's watching along with us right now, and he's on Discord. So yeah, send me that. We can look at it.
I've already read the paper. Quote then, bro. So
I've already read the paper. I'm not to refute it.
But let's talk about it.
I just quoted Einstein saying the opposite.
In my own development, Michelson's result has not had a considerable influence. If I don't interrupt me.
He can't not interrupt. He's like, I already know. I'm right. I'm right.
I do not remember if I knew of it at all when my first paper on the subject, 1905. The explanation is that I was, for general reasons, firmly convinced that there does not exist absolute motion, and my problem was only how this could be reconciled with our knowledge of electrodynamics. One can therefore understand why, in my personal struggle, Michelson's experiment played no role, or at least no decisive role. So it's
okay. Now I'm going to respond.
That'd be great.
I've already read that paper. I already know about this argument, and it's stupid. So the paper argues that Einstein just contradicted himself. Your argument is that Einstein himself didn't know what he was talking about.
In reality, the argument is that Witsit misquoted Einstein, misapplied what Einstein was talking about. So let's pull up here the Einstein Chicago paper that Sealion just sent me. All right, on the role of Michelson-Morley, Einstein in Chicago, right? So and who said it's from the man himself? That was Witsit that said that. So you can't get any more primary source than the words that Einstein wrote. Right? Well, this is written by Jaron Van Dagen, so we'll see what this says here. Where any place I should go in particular? It is a 9-page paper. Einstein's knowledge of the Michelson-Morley experiment prior to 1905 in a lecture in. Let's see. Here's the abstract. This article discusses new material published in volume 12 of the collected papers of Albert Einstein that addresses Einstein's knowledge of the Michelson-Morley experiment prior to 1905. In a lecture in Chicago in 1921, Einstein referred to the experiment, mentioned when he came upon it, and hinted at its influence. Arguments are presented to explain the contrast with Einstein's later pronouncements on the role of the experiment. Einstein did not explicitly mention the experiment in his 1905 publication. That would be what he published in 1905. And this circumstance hold on a second. Roger that says, hope you're doing well, Mr. Toon. We'll email you tomorrow. Got some Oakley info for you. Looking forward to that. Thank you. Roger that. And the circumstance raises questions regarding the accurateness of the old lore. Einstein did, of course, take up the Michelson-Morley experiment on numerous occasions in later publications. He cited it for the first time in a review article of 1907. And as another example, in 1910, in another review, he discussed the experiment to illustrate the unnaturalness of Lorentz's length contraction hypothesis. So again, Lorentz's length contraction hypothesis is Lorentz's attempt to salvage ether, claiming that the reason why is critical, is really critical. The motion of the Earth around the sun was known. That wasn't in question. Nobody's wondering about that. Nobody was testing for that. It was known. There are multiple reasons why they knew that was the case. The first paragraph of Michelson-Morley mentions James Bradley, 1927. I think later in the paper they mention Airy. Airy's failure. Other ways Einstein specifically mentions in this book, Vogel and Schneier's work. It's in I don't know, in the red and blue shift of light as you move towards stars and away from stars in Earth's orbit. So they weren't saying, well, maybe the Earth isn't moving. They weren't saying that. They're, everybody there is saying, we know the Earth is moving. There's plenty of evidence for it. That's not the thing in question. The thing in question is whether or not ether exists, how ether works. That's what they were looking at. And so in order to try to salvage ether still existing, because they're like, well, things are pointing towards ether not existing, at least the undulating theory of light version of ether. Jeez, all right. I got a little bit of a headache, actually. Don't normally get headaches. Give me a second. I'm gonna finish this thought, then I'm gonna play a video for you while I go get some Tylenol. So Lorentz and Fitzgerald were saying, well, what could we propose that works to explain how Michelson-Morley did not measure any contraction with ether and the Earth moving? The Earth moving is a given. Ether is the thing in question. And so they proposed that. So that's what this unnaturalness of Lorentz's length contraction hypothesis. And the unnaturalness is that he proposed that everything got compressed. Everything got compressed the same amount. So an iron bar gets compressed as much as a feather, right? And they have drastically different compressibilities, drastically different physical makeups and the interactions between the atoms and stuff, the electrodynamics between the actual elements. It can't be explained by just ether compressing it. And that's what Einstein was talking about. Most of these discussions related to the question of evidential support for special relativity. There are far fewer sources that illuminate the concrete role of the experiment in Einstein's thought leading up to 1905. And those that are extant are not always unambiguous. We'll discuss a new addition to the documents here. So, all right. I'm getting something for you here. All right. Enjoy a short musical interlude while I get some Tylenol. And there may be an ad that pops up. Just let it play. That'd be nice. Oh, it didn't load. I didn't give it enough time. It might drop. Did it drop? It didn't drop. Okay, hold on. We'll do it again.
Gonna dip container, that's my claim. I've got no clue, I just hang my head in shame. Yo, listen up, it's your boy Dirt H into his house. That's the worst house. Got a plan so slick, gonna make your pockets his house. I got an app, it's gonna change your life. But before you download, let me slice through the strife. They say the Earth's a globe, but I beg to differ. I'll make you believe, I'll make you shiver. Spectroscopy needs a container, that's my claim. I've got no clue, I just hang my head in shame. Block treader, that's the line I'm preaching. Sell my app, it's what I'm seeking. Fake challenge, try your luck. While I'm laughing, pocketing a buck. I'm a scammer.
I'm a scammer.
I'm a scammer.
I'm a scammer.
Flat Earth, that's the lie I'm preaching. Sell my app, it's what I'm seeking. Fake challenge, try your luck while I'm laughing, pocketing a buck. I'm a scammer.
I'm a scammer.
I'm a scammer.
I'm a scammer.
Yo, Dave Weiss is a scammer. Talk about Antarctica, the icy place. Offered a free trip, dangled it in my face, but I won't go. It's not about thrift. I'm staying home, gotta protect my grift. I'm a scammer. I'm a scammer. Yo, Dave Weiss is a scammer. Talk about Antarctica, that icy place. Offered a free trip, dangled it in my face, but I won't go. It's not about thrift. I'm staying home, gotta protect my grift. I'm a scammer. Antarctica, that icy place. Offered a free trip, dangled it in my face, but I won't go. It's not about thrift. I'm staying home, gotta protect my grift. I'm a scammer. The scammer, I play the game. Gonna hustle hard, gonna rise to fame. But remember one thing, it's all a ploy to make that green. I'll be your decoy. So if you wanna join, come take my hand. But beware the tricks, it's all planned. Titrh, that's my name. In the world of scams, I got the fame.
I'm a scammer.
All right. I'm back. The audio is not synced. I'm still hearing the song, but I think it's just delayed. Anyway, I'm back. I'm feeling better already. How am I feeling better already? I don't know. I'm not, actually. I did take some Tylenol or acetaminophen or paracetamol if you're in England or a Commonwealth country. They seem to say that instead. Anyway, let me catch up on some super chats before I move forward. I've asked... Oh, okay. And then Sealion gave me the specific citations to read that Witsit did not want read. Kango44 says, I think Witsit should take a pause and start with something a bit more simple. Start with the sunset, maybe. We're trying to tie his shoelaces. I solder 74 says, so he just denied all Kepler's laws. Yes. So yeah, it's this spiral of obfuscation. Like, oh, special relativity and general relativity was all... Like, hold on a second. Let's be clear here. The Michelson-Morley caused Einstein to propose special relativity is not general relativity, is not changing the orbit from Kepler's laws with Newtonian gravitation with Kepler's laws and Einsteinian gravitation. That came 10 years later. Assuming that the only input that Einstein had to his 1905 special relativity was Michelson-Morley. It wasn't. All right. MK Ultra says, first we'll ask Witless to explain how we're wrong, and then we'll ask a schizophrenic how to tell reality from delusion. Truth. Steve660 says, fun fact, take the Michelson-Morley apparatus, scale it up to 5 kilometers per side, add more sensitive detectors, and you have a LIGO apparatus. Very true. The sensitivity of that is amazing. Now, I brought that up with Alan from Space Audits. And what did he do? He cited the different things that they do to control for confounding variables as a negative thing. Yeah, he really did that. He really did claim that all of the immense work that they did to control for confounding variables was wrong. Yeah, he doesn't like a better, more precise experiment. He wants a less precise experiment. That's how desperate they are. So, all right, we got iSolder 74 says yum, 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 yum. Word salad, Larry Scott said check DM. I did, thank you. Roger that. I already said about Oakley. Got some news. Lord of Luminous Pooh says there was a kidnapping in my apartment complex yesterday. It's okay. He woke up. A kid napping. You see a kid sleeping? That's what that... Thank you, Lord of Luminous Pooh. Sealion Prime says, Witsit really didn't want me to read this paper. He didn't. I'm going to back it up a little bit to get his, what's the word to describe his instant change in demeanor when you mention that paper? Lord Illuminous Pooh says, the fact that Neo had to accept a cookie from the Oracle in the Matrix is the best programmer joke I've ever seen. Had to accept a cookie? Oh, yeah. Borg Emporia says, will you mention the collab that FTFE and Dapper Dinosaur are doing together? Date is, I believe, September 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. DAP's Cis Channel. Top hats off. No, I won't mention that. You just made me mention that. I did not know anything about it. So we'll see. FTFE has been busy doing some editing. So is the word crestfallen? I don't know. Wit's caprice. He does not want it read. But all right, let's put it up here. So all right, so just below where I'm at is where he said, where Sealion said. So in 1969, Jerome Holton made the first detailed study of historical sources then available and argued that the Michelson-Morley experiment had played a limited and indirect part. According to Einstein's recollections, later in life, the role it had was at best to allay any doubts that he may have had about the general validity of the principle or of relativity, or indeed to emphasize the inadequacy of Lorentz's theory that ether was smushing matter. Einstein himself, for example, is trying to read a little too fast. I'll slow down a little bit. Einstein himself, for instance, claimed in 1942 that he had already become pretty much convinced of the validity of the relativity principle before I did know this experiment and its results. Citation number 2 there. Another fairly typical statement by the older Einstein of his recollection is, in my own development, Michelson's result has not had a considerable influence. I do not remember if I knew of it at all when I wrote my first paper on the subject in 1905. The explanation is that I was, for general reasons, firmly convinced that there does not exist absolute motion, and my problem was only how this could be reconciled with our knowledge of electrodynamics. So electrodynamics being Maxwell's equations. So the name of the paper is on the hold on, I don't want to get the name wrong. On the Electrodynamics of Moving Bodies is the name of his paper from 1905. So reconciled with our knowledge of electrodynamics. See, I had it ready. It was sitting there ready to go. One can therefore understand why, in my personal struggle, Michelson's experiment played no role, or at least no decisive role. All right. Then he said the last paragraph. The Michelson-Morley experiment is only one among a melee of factors that put Einstein in the path to special relativity, including the thought experiment of moving coil and magnet. His Chicago lecture does not warrant a return to the old lore as promulgated by Millikan. Yet, the contrast it exhibits with the older Einstein's pronouncements on the role of the experiment casts doubts on the accuracy of his late personal recollections and draws attention to their specific philosophical context. There you go. And then there's a couple of citations. Let's see. Oh, they're not. Oh, okay. Hold on. There's that 2 and 3. So 2. Einstein to Michelson's biographer, Bernard Jaffe, on 17 March 1942. And then number 3 here, Einstein to F.G. Davenport, February 1954. So those are the 2 citations that we covered here. That's this one here, is that to Davenport. So there you go. Witsit did not want that addressed. Why not? What? So let's back up a little bit. We're going to go just a couple seconds. We're going to see if we can catch his demeanor change here. So Aaron Reese says, Witsit word salads faster than you're able to read. He's clearly smarter, like 160 IQ. Dave Kircher says, thank Titicaca. It's 2 Takes Tuesday. I'm here now. Start over whenever you're ready. Oh, good thing you can just rewind. There we go. Let's go with this one here. All right, here we go.
General reasons, firmly convinced that there does not exist absolute motion, and my problem was only how this could be reconciled with our knowledge of electrodynamics. One can therefore understand why, in my personal struggle, Michelson's experiment played no role, or at least no decisive role. So it's
okay. Now I'm going to respond.
That'd be great.
I've already read that paper. I already know about this argument, and it's stupid. So the paper argues that Einstein just contradicted himself. Your argument is that Einstein himself didn't know what he was talking about. That's what the paper says. The paper says we're confused. It doesn't even draw a conclusive conclusion. It's trying to still man the idea that he didn't have anything to do with special relativity. But if you actually read the paper that you're citing, it literally points out that it doesn't really add up, and that all the other references to special relativity by Einstein imply that he had a direct influence. It's only the year before he died. The year before he died, he then says, I don't really remember if I even knew about special relativity, but it didn't have a decisive role. Well, that's convenient. After Michelson-Gale-Pearson comes along in the 20s and shows that we can detect the rotation of the Earth, and now it directly flies into the face of his special relativistic fix.
No, it doesn't. What are you talking about? The rotation of an apparatus measuring a fringe shift does not contradict anything with relativity. That's weird. And when I debated Alan from Space Audits, he really struggled to understand what Michelson-Gale-Pearson, is just usually called Michelson-Gale, was about. He seemed to think that somehow it required an absolute reference frame, but it doesn't. It's about a difference in the path of the light, a difference in the length of the path of the light. I even drew it for Alan, and he struggled to understand it. Alan from Space Audits is always hanging out with Witsit, so it's a strange one.
Michelson-Morley, how convenient that then right before he dies, he claims that he doesn't remember if it had a crucial role. Well, we can go read his actual paper on special relativity, and we can go listen to his quotes at the time where he specifically says that
this is not his paper on special relativity.
He came across the peculiar results of Michelson-Morley in his student years, and that was the first thing that led him down the path to special relativity. And then in the special relativity paper, which I'm about to drop for the room, which everyone should surely have read before they engage in this conversation, he points out
bets on whether or not he ever drops this citation. And if he drops this citation, will it be this one here? This is the paper on the electrodynamics of moving bodies. This one right here. You are looking at the paper from 1905 that Witsit just claimed he's about to drop. I will drop it for you. There you go. Or you can find it on my website, mc2.net/relativity. But let's see what Witsit has to say. Will he drop the citation?
Very clearly, the primary thing explained in that paper is how to solve the Michelson-Morley results. And then even in the 20s, even in the 20s, whenever he's addressing the replications of Michelson-Morley, which were done by Dayton-Miller, right? In 1920, he says that if the results from Dayton-Miller are confirmed, that he has no explanation, and that immediately his theory would have to be replaced.
Good thing Dayton-Miller's stuff was junk.
And 4 years later, he says, if there isn't some fundamental error causing these results, a fundamental error that I cannot explain causing these results, then my entire theory of relativity falls like a house of cards. So even in the 20s, he's explaining that the actual I'm almost done. And even in the 20s, he's explaining that the actual viability of his theory of relativity is directly dependent upon the Michelson-Morley results.
So I just need the sources, man. Like, that's the thing at the end of the day. Right?
I'm gonna drop, those are two letters from Einstein, and that's the main paper, and that's a speech in Cairo University. I'll drop all of it.
The main paper. Let's see if he's going to drop all of it.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, so what do you posit then as the motivation for Einstein saying?
So for anybody ever talking with Witsit, when he says he's going to drop something, he often does have them And for reference, they always will confirm the first law of Flerf. So absolutely, absolutely get them. Completely, totally insist on him providing them. Right? Now, you can see right here, this is the live stream happening here. So if he drops them, you'll see them show up in this streaming portion here. But what you can do, if you're ever talking to him, is say, let's pause right now. Don't talk anymore. Get them. Then we can move forward.
In this particular lecture, what he said.
Well, I kind of touched on that, but the paper also kind of touches on it. Like if you read the paper that you're citing, which I have a feeling that another Glober sent it to you. Because, dude, don't ask me questions that are running. Clearly, I'm coming from a position that knows more about this than you.
Oh my gosh, such a humble person. I clearly know more about this than you do. What an absolute narcissist.
So can you, if you're asking a question in good faith, and listen to what I'm saying.
If we go into the mathematics of relativity, that's going to diverge really quick. But like, if
no one's talking about mathematics.
Yeah, but that's the thing you're talking about relativity, right? Is that?
But you asked me what was my interpretation of why he would say that, and I'm about to explain it. And even the paper explains they don't really understand it because it's a blatant contradiction on its face. The most staunch globe Earth proponents will come in here. J. Ace is the one that found that paper, and the reason is because when I started slicing up all the Globers with this information, they cannot hold their own, so they had to find a way to just get rid.
Slicing up all the Globers with this. Oh my gosh, he's so pompous. Such a pretentious ass.
Let me just say what I'm saying, please. They had to find a way to get rid of the...
Let you just post what you said you're going to be posting, please.
Conversation. So then they all mass adopted this claim that relativity had nothing to do with Michelson-Morley because they can't defend it. They can't go through the paper of special relativity with you and actually defend it because it point blank explains it's very important. Now, in conclusion, to answer your question, the reason why, in my opinion, is because at that point he was at the end of his life, right? And so he's like looking at his whole like life work. Right, and the very thing that he brought forth, that he was revered for and renowned for, it was.
You know what he hasn't posted yet? The paper he said he was going to post. But like Omnivore says, what ramble? Yeah, Wesley G says narcissism at its best. Yep. Witsit is a big fish in a muddy puddle. If only you could see, if you could only see the tabs he has open. Speaking of 55 gallons of ranch. Oh, this is a good one. Few things are as annoying as a person that thinks arrogance is intelligence. And this one here, Stanley Tools, he's so messed up that I feel sorry for him. Yeah.
In jeopardy when it comes to the interpretation of Michelson-Morley side by side with Michelson-Gale-Pearson. So if you look at the history of 1887 Michelson-Morley, right, then you fast forward to 1905, that's special relativity, then 1915 general relativity, then in the 20s Dayton Miller, he's referring to Dayton Miller's work because everyone's pressing him, how are you going to explain Dayton Miller's work? He's like, I can't, I don't know. Then you fast forward to right before he dies, right, and you have Michelson-Gale-Pearson that comes in and confirms that you can detect the motion, the alleged rotation with interferometry. So then he's
the alleged rotation. You know what Witsit likes to say? It's sidereal rotation. Okay, well, what does sidereal mean then? You're just putting a word in there in front of rotation to try to avoid the very obvious thing that since the apparatus is fixed to the surface of the Earth, it's measuring the rotation of the Earth.
He says, oh, no, well, because what that means, what that implies is that his actual attempt to explain the Michelson-Morley results was futile, that it wasn't successful. So instead he says, oh, well, that had nothing to do with my interpretation at all. It's just a hand-wave dismissal.
Bendy space. I wonder how long Witsit can talk. Like he's just rambling here and not posting the citation.
At the end of his life so that he doesn't have to admit that maybe his entire life work didn't do anything.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
Well, this is where the cog disc comes in now.
Well, hold on. Let's keep it to 1v1, guys. Like, so the thing here, man, is that when you read the actual paper, and I kind of dispute that you just like, I found this paper myself in my own research. Not that really matters. But the last thing the paper says is the Michelson-Morley experiment is only one among a melee of factors that put Einstein on the path to special theory, including, e.g., the thought experiment of moving coil and magnet. I think you are overweighting the role of the Michelson-Morley experiment and then sort of inappropriately contextualizing all of.
Oh, look at that. He actually posted this. He actually posted it. The correct one on the electrodynamics of moving bodies. This one here, the one that he says just for reference, the one that he says is all talking about Michelson-Morley. But is that in here? Does that actually talk about it? Should we have a little look-see here? All right, hold on. Let me expand this here. Expand this here. So now, Sealion had read from that paper, and I read from the same one. This one here. This portion here. Magnets, right? Something about magnets. There it is. Michelson-Morley experiment is only one. So this is what Sealion just read. Only one among a melee of factors that put Einstein in the path of special relativity, including the thought experiment of moving coil and magnet. Right? And then we get here. Let's have a look. It's well known Maxwell's electrodynamics is usually understood at present when applied to moving bodies leads us to asymmetries that do not seem to attach to the phenomena. Let us recall, for example, the electrodynamic interaction between a magnet and a conductor, not Michelson-Morley. The observable phenomenon depends here on the relative motion of the conductor and magnet, while according to the customary concept of the two cases, in which, all right, does he talk about Michelson-Morley in here at all? I don't know. Let's see. Nope, wrong paper here. 1907, which we already identified before. See that? 1907 is where he talks about Michelson. 1907. 1909. Turns out, no. In this paper, he does not talk about the paper from 1905. He does not talk about Michelson-Morley. Sealion, good job. Nailed him. Absolutely nailed Witsit there. Completely demolished Witsit there. Because Witsit is saying, it doesn't even, none of this matters. This is just, Witsit trying to not talk about flat Earth. 4 steps removed, right? He can't explain a sunset for his dirt pizza, and he wants to think that he can talk about relativity? No. All right, so let's see if he's
of relativity on that basis. And how we basically got to this conversation was a discussion of orbital versus rotational motion. And I agree that we can measure rotational motion with interferometry. Like, we agree on that, right? The distinction is we cannot necessarily measure using, and that's the quote that we often hear about terrestrial experiments with regards to Einstein, the movement of the Earth around the sun and kinematic equivalence and those factors, the measurement of the orbit by such methods. Do you agree that there's a distinction between the orbit and the rotation and how that would manifest in interferometry?
Yeah, literally that distinction was proposed in special relativity and then expanded upon in general relativity.
What?
Now, the reason that I highlight this, obviously special relativity is, and general relativity, because actual gravity, gravitational orbits, etc., is actually general relativity. But it's actually built upon the foundation of special relativity, although really what ends up happening is in 1915, he's like, dang, okay, I basically have to end up concluding that the Earth could still be stationary, right? When
that was literally nothing in any of the things that that Einstein was dealing with, was that he's like, oh dang, it's stationary. No, that was not. He wasn't sitting there thinking, oh no, we have to conclude the Earth is stationary. Witsit thinks that in everybody's head, like, hey everybody, we just can't admit that the Earth is stationary, whatever we do. They told us that we can't do that. Who is they? I don't know, but they told us. Dude, what a douche. He thinks they care about that. No, the Earth is moving. They knew it. They all knew it. There was a measurement of it. Almost 200 years prior, 175 years prior. There's a measurement of it. Oh my gosh.
when he initially tried to point out exclusivity, but that's not the point. The point is that in 1905 he comes out and he writes in detail an explanation. A portion of that paper is in detail about Michelson-Morley.
Oh my gosh, what a can somebody in detail a portion of that paper? This paper, I just put it there. A portion of that paper was in detail about Michelson-Morley. It's so his ego, Austin's ego is so amazing. He's relying on none of his followers to ever read this to see that the word Michelson isn't in here. It's not in here. It's not in here. It's not there. Oh my gosh. Icy Spin, I went to the other room for a minute. What evidence from Witsit did I miss that disproves the globe? None. None at all. You're safe. We're all safe. Witsit won't talk about flat Earth. So, all right, PhD Tony says 98% of everything Witsit says about the history of science is complete bull stuff. We're lucky he isn't quoting Einstein, but he is quoting Einstein. No, well, he's not. You're right. He's not quoting Einstein. He's paraphrasing Einstein and misquoting and cherry picking Einstein. iSolder74 says just saying a vague description of something is not a citation. Yep. Seriously. Sealion Prime says if you say Michelson-Morley 3 times while looking at a dumpster fire, Austin will appear. Will he appear inside the dumpster fire? Because that's cruelty to animals. Aaron Reese says, did you hear they made a flat Earth AI? Sadly, it consumed its own resources and died. Well, Shame Saint Plagiaire has created what he calls Flat GPT, but apparently it's just ChatGPT that he has given instructions to on how to answer. So it all has to go through him because he has to constantly tell it how to answer. So. Emerson Biggins says you got to give Witsit credit for being a world-class BSer. Imagine the hours he put in memorizing boring science papers to use in his act. Totally. Astrokate. Everybody liked you last week, Astrokate. Big fans all around. Says, how is it possible that Witsit can hallucinate facts better than ChatGPT? AI researchers need to study his brain for the next generation of LLMs. I was interacting with ChatGPT and it got something wrong. I thought it got something. This is funny. I thought I got something wrong. I was wrong, but hold on. I told it, hey, I think you got this wrong. And it says, oh, I'm sorry. You're correct. Here's the right answer. Or it reiterated my wrongness assertion and said, yep, that's right. And then it rewrote using a completely different words the same thing as it did before with the same thing that I thought was wrong. And I'm like, hold on a second. You still said it was wrong. He goes, oh, I thank you again for your patience. I got it wrong again. This is ChatGPT. I got it wrong again. Here's the right one. And I got it wrong again, according to what I thought. I did this like 4 times. And then I reread the initial thing. I'm like, oh, wait a second. I was wrong in a nuance of it, in correcting it for all of these things. But it was still getting the answer wrong. I was just trying, I was probing it to see what it would do, right? And again, I was wrong coming into it. It was wrong with the answer. We were both being wrong, to be clear. But when I told it was wrong, it told me I was right and then re-answered wrongly. Except it was rightly. With the nuance, it was wrong. Anyway, the point is, it's weird how when you tell it something, it will affirm you even though you're not correct. So it's a reverse hallucination, I guess. a challenge if you're going to put anything that requires accountability on any AI, LLMs, things like that. Be careful. Be careful. Okay. Caught up there. Let's get back to this. This is going well. This is the part, this part so far I was not listening to. So what happened was I was listening. I had to go to work. So I missed a little bit of it. And then I popped in and caught the end again.
Dude, special relativity incorporates Maxwell's laws. It's about the velocity of light, right?
Maxwell's equations
postulates two primary postulates. It isn't just about special relativity. I mean, it isn't just about Michelson-Morley. I never said that. Okay, but it is the experiment that demanded a theory such as special relativity, right? It is the experiment that changed all of physics. And in fact, when Einstein first proposed his idea, he got laughed out of the Royal Society. People were like, you're trying to say that Newtonian dynamics is wrong, that there is no ether. He got laughed at. He got laughed at. He was considered a joke, right? But the only reason people even turned back to his theory and ended up accepting it,
because he was right,
was because after years of all kinds of physicists trying to explain Michelson-Morley, the only thing that could try to do it was Albert Einstein's theory. That's why he allegedly got vindicated. So that's the actual history. So yeah,
he did get vindicated because there was no other explanation. And Witsit is going to propose that all of the other measurements of the motion of the Earth be blithely thrown out, just ignored, just pretended that they don't even exist. Never mind these other things.
When in the historical context of this theory, Michelson-Morley plays a pivotal role. It is the entire moment that all the shift in physics hinges upon.
So here's the thing, though. Let's talk about that. So I think that you're saying two different things. If you say that there's evidence historically that there's a pivotal role and there's a contradiction between the way Einstein approached Michelson-Morley in earlier letters versus later letters, then I agree with you. I think that that's supported by the primary sources. But when we look at the contextualization of special relativity and general relativity, I think you have a fundamental misunderstanding of the way that Newtonian mechanics and Einstein's theory play into each other. Because you seem to think that the existence of general relativity and Einstein's theory invalidates classical Newtonian mechanics. But that's actually not the case. And as it pertains to orbits in particular.
Icy Spin says, can you remind me of how high Witsit's post-secondary education goes for science? I said, you said you did some college to him. What did you do? Business ad, and never went to class. I went to college to play football. Did you take physics in high school? Yeah, physics 1 and 2 honors at a private school. Made A in both. Press X to doubt.
You're aware, right, that there's nothing about relativity that says that we suddenly can't use Kepler's laws and Newtonian gravity.
Kepler's laws has nothing to do with Newtonian mechanics. Why do you...
What? Holy cow. Kepler's laws, he just... How did Newton... Hold on. How did Newton get F equals G M1 M2 over R squared? It wasn't G, right? The proportionality. How did he get that? Where did he get that from? Kepler. Oh my goodness. He just said they had nothing to do with each other. Oh my gosh.
People do stuff like that. Okay, no, they are fundamentally opposite. They are fundamentally opposite. They are fundamentally opposites.
No, they're not.
Okay. In Newtonian physics, let me ask you a simple question. In Newtonian physics, is gravity a force?
Yes, it's conceived of.
Okay, in relativity is gravity a force?
However, Newton himself never really contextualized it in the way that we think about it today.
Doesn't matter.
No, it's very important because what happens is we think about gravity, and yes, we think about gravity in a very different way. However, you're aware, no doubt, because you know a lot about relativity and Newtonian mechanics, that Einstein's theory, and I have a paper for you that I can give you specifically on this, under conditions that are relevant to the conditions that we see on Earth, and certainly the conditions we would see in a static torsion balance experiment, are completely able to be derived from relativity. We can derive the Newtonian law of gravitation up to a constant of proportionality from the theory of relativity. So,
who posted that? The video that Witsit is terrified to watch. It went quick. Earth is life. Hold on. All right. Let's go here. Let's see, not this one. Go to my webpage, Sealion.net/Einstein. So Sealion was just talking about, basically said that you can go from Einstein's field equations to Newtonian gravity. And I have 4 citations for your reading pleasure here, along with the link right to the PDF. So you don't even have to go searching for it. I already searched for the PDFs for you. One of them I'm self-hosting because I don't know, the source didn't work or something. It broke, the link broke. So The Large Scale Structure of Space-Time by Hawking and Ellis. Misner on gravitation. It's loading right now. We got Sean Carroll on gravitation. And we got General Relativity by Robert Wald. So that one here is page 76. So we can jump down to page 76. So typically when I give a page number, I give the page number of the paper, not the page number of the PDF. So this is 70 or 69. We're looking for 76. I'm not always perfect on that one. There it is, the Newtonian limit. So here is, in this book, right, the Newtonian limit, which goes to, it doesn't come out in F equals ma. It's the Newtonian limit. It's a different formation of it. Hawking and Ellis, page 71. So we're looking for page 71 here. There it is, the field equations. The Lagrangian formulation. There it is. I'll leave that to you to peruse. Maybe Clive Wells can give us a little rundown on this on his channel. I think he already has. Then we've got Gravitation by Misner and Thorne. We're looking for page 412 of a 1,300 page paper. .412. The Newtonian limit right there. There you go. Right, and then I think this last one, here, they go through it here. I think this last one actually goes by Sean Carroll, section 4.2. Let's see, where does 4.2? I didn't give the page number. What a nice guy. I didn't do that. I should have done that. Chapter 3, chapter 5, chapter 4 through 4.3, and here's 4.2. There you go. So 4 citations right there for your viewing pleasure of Einstein's field equations applied to our reference frame, solving to the Newtonian limit. So there you go. So directly to what Sealion was just saying.
From the theory of relativity. So there's no direct, it's not like that would imply you have this idea that they're somehow incompatible. But that's actually not the case if we can derive one from the other.
Okay, they are fundamentally incompatible because to claim that they're both true would violate the law of non-contradiction.
Oh my gosh. What an absolute douchebag. He thinks, let me just make it clear. Witsit thinks that he understands relativity better than Robert Wald. Witsit thinks that he understands relativity better than Hawking and Ellis. Witsit thinks that he understands relativity better than Misner, Thorne, and Wheeler. And Witsit thinks that he understands relativity better than Sean Carroll. All these people that derived the Newtonian limit from Einstein's field equations. Well, and Einstein himself. He thinks he's smarter than all of them. It's that they can't both be true. Why can't they both be true? He doesn't know why they can't both be true. He just wants to say it.
Contradiction. This is such a, respectfully, this is such a low level argument that all the anti-flat earthers have absorbed. It blows my mind that none of them have stopped saying it. No, listen. It shows a fundamental inability to comprehend what physics even is. Physics is an
gosh. The ego of this asshole that he, in his complete ignorance of how physics works, is lifting himself up on a pedestal as if he knows physics more than anybody else. What an asshole. Filth. Just filth. To think that to be so condescending and pretentious that you would think that these things that people do understand, and you didn't even look at these damn things, to say that how come globers, how come anti-flat earthers keep saying this? Because it's true. Because it's true, Austin. That's why we keep saying it. To think that the narcissism, the unmitigated ego, that he thinks that he can somehow put himself above everybody else, that he's trying to lecture people on physics. He didn't take physics in college. He only took it at a private high school. That's it.
explanatory framework. It's where we explain cause and effect relationships. Okay, so when you start talking about how we can get to the same mathematical output, that's totally irrelevant. They make fundamentally different claims. Any physicist will tell you this. Okay, they'll tell you
any physicist will tell you, yeah, look at those books there. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's where we're going. That's where physicists are going. This is a good one. iSlider74 says he just lied through his teeth. Newton used Kepler's laws to confirm universal gravity. Yeah, that's how, to my understanding, that's how he derived them. Wow. Douche. Beast Militia says, I've always said that Witsit would rather sniff his own farts than breathe oxygen because it's oxygen that comes from him. Because that is oxygen that comes from him. Oh.
We use Newtonian mechanics on a local scale because it works good enough. Why would we not use it? They're never going to tell you that they can coexist. They're fundamentally different, and here's why. Here's three primary reasons why. Newton said that space was absolute and fixed.
That, oh my gosh. He goes for the quoting again. Just quote. Just quote. Just quote Newton. Don't apply F equals G m1 m2 over r squared, which has nothing to do with fixed space. Right? That's the thing. This guy who created the equation also said this other thing that's not related. Therefore, I get to apply it to the equation he developed. No, that's not how it works.
And we measure motion, absolute motion against the absolute and fixed space. Okay? Einstein says space is not absolute and fixed. There is no such thing as absolute motion. All motion is relative. Everything is moving, but you can only say something's moving if you say in relation to something else. So there is no absolute motion, and space is not absolute and fixed. Newton says there is absolute motion. We measure it against space, which is absolute and fixed. Those are fundamentally contradictory. Another one says there is no ether. There is no ether. There is no substantive background medium in which light propagates through. What did Newton say? There has to be an ether. Newton's theory literally requires there be an ether.
What part of F equals G m1 m2 over r squared requires an ether? None of it. Yep, right here we've got peak of Mount Stupid. The problem with this graph when it comes to Witsit is that see that left side there that says confidence? This isn't high enough. The peak that Witsit sits upon is significantly off of this chart. The rest of this line would merge with the bottom axis of competence compared to the peak that he sits upon. Yeah. Not drawn to scale.
Okay, third one. Gravity is a force in Newtonian gravity in mechanics, but whenever you get over to Einstein, it is not a force. And here's the fourth one. Newtonian mechanics says if an object's moving in a straight path, it will continue in a straight path unless an outside force acts upon it. Einstein says an object can be moving in a straight path in a singular reference frame, but from a different reference frame, it can simultaneously be moving in a curved path, and it doesn't actually require a force to act upon it because it's just a geodesic of the bending and warping of space-time. These are fundamentally different. To say they're
none of these things apply. None of these things, right? And this gets to how people like Witsit, the leaders in the different silos of pseudoscience, how they can get along. If you were here last week for Gary from Draft Physics, right? He doesn't have an echo chamber, right? He's such an odious person that he's basically he has no following. But there are people in other silos of pseudoscience, the moon landing deniers, the geocentrists, the anti-5G nutcases, right? What they do is they don't understand the topic, but they've gotten enough followers that understand it less than them, that they've been able to fool the people that understand it less than them enough that whatever they say, their acolytes are going to buy it. And the important thing is it's no accountability. This is the key thing about the different leaders in the various silos of pseudoscience. There's no accountability. What that means is they can say things and several things apply to it. They aren't doing real world application of the things they say. Right? So if somebody says gravity is just electrostatics, right? Witsit says that. Well, there's no accountability to that. He's not going and doing actual physics, engineering, architecture by applying what he thinks about electrostatics and gravity. He's not applying that. So if he did, he'd be accountable to it. He would have problems if he was wrong. So an engineer, an architect that designs something that's wrong. If an architect misunderstands the physics, statics and dynamics and things like that, of how to build a bridge, and has a different idea about how it works, and uses that other idea rather than the actual statics and dynamics and foundational architectural ideas, and uses these other pseudoscience crazy theories to design a bridge, well, that bridge won't work. And if then you somehow got to the point where the bridge was built, spend all that money on the bridge, and then if it still stayed up, and then you drove a car across the bridge and then the bridge collapsed and people died because of the misapplication of the other stuff, well, that's accountability. Pseudoscience leaders don't have accountability because they don't solve real world problems with their claims that they make to their echo chamber. So Austin gets to say without challenge, make the claim that Newtonian mechanics didn't come from Kepler. Absolute lie. It's the opposite is true. He gets to say without challenge in his echo chamber things like those four things that he listed off in an effort to proclaim that F equals G M1 M2 over R squared. is somehow incompatible with Einstein's field equations when everybody else that understands the topic says, yep, they're completely compatible, but they're not in the echo chamber, right? And they protect against those people in the echo chamber by dogpiling and by misinterpreting them and by talking over them and by not letting them, like, you know, doing what they're doing to Sealion here, who has made it clear that this actually is something that you can do. They're like, nope, nuh-uh, here's the 4 things, like, and there's, again, no accountability for that. Right? He gets to say those things and nobody's going to call him up on that. There's no flat earthers in there that are going to say, you know what, Austin, you were wrong on that. Sealion was actually correct. Those things that you said didn't work, they actually do. Nobody's going to call him up on that. No accountability. That's a key part to the leaders in pseudoscience silos. And that's how, and they get by with that because of the no accountability, because they're just telling people what they want to, telling people what their itching ears want to hear. If you know what I'm referencing there. And Witsit's good at telling other flirfs what their itching ears want to hear. I.C. Smith says the problem is if they rebel on Witsit, even if they think he's wrong, they fear the repercussions of the community. Simple system. Yeah. It's like the, I don't know if it's a parable or if it's real. If you have a bunch of rats in a bucket, they could maybe climb out, but if one of them starts to climb out, the other rats will try to climb up the rat that's climbing out, pulling that rat down. Right? So anybody trying to reach up, to get higher, to get a better understanding, nope, all the other rats pull them down. It's the social structure of the pseudoscience echo chambers. All right. So your summation is Witsit is the smartest man of Idiotville. It's interesting, the dynamics of the different flirf leaders, right? Some of them are really dumb, and they just, they're obviously mentally challenged. You've got Victor Crute, John Puckett, Mikey Smith. So there's a bunch that are quite literally mentally challenged in a pretty severe way. And in earlier times, they would not have been allowed to live alone. For good or for bad, they would have been involuntarily housed in some sort of a place to protect themselves. But I think, softer times have said, well, they're not going to damage themselves. They can feed and clothe themselves. So let's make a way for them to live on their own. And it's probably less expensive financially on society. Though with the lowering of the bar to get on the internet, to get your horrible ideas out there, those people have now found ways to get out on the internet and now share their bad ideas. Fortunately, most of the quite nut, crazy, mentally handicapped people like Mikey Smith don't get much of a following. You go look at him. He doesn't have, I don't think you'll find a single flirf that would have Mikey Smith as his Papa Flirf. Right? Same thing with Victor Crute. Same thing with John Puckett. Right? They don't have that. But you have the slightly less that are still dumb, but pretty stupid, like Nathan Thompson. So there you get the interesting dynamic where if you took all of the village idiots together and put them into a village of idiots. Who would be their village idiot? Nathan Thompson would be one of their village idiots. In a village of village idiots, you are their village idiot. So, generally shady. Dearth has his app. Let's make a Flatardia video game where we destroy flurfs using logic and other things. Yep. You know what I have, just by the way, if you were here for the previous video, you know what I haven't received? An email from Robert Bennett saying, I'm ready with Zoom. I also haven't received a message from Money Heist saying Robert Bennett is ready to go. So, all right. And iSolder74 brings up a good point. Tacoma Narrows Bridge. So the Tacoma Narrows Bridge was a bridge that did not fare well when it was built. So it had some engineering flaws. And eventually ripped itself apart in the wind. And that was why, if you remember it. It happened like that because the engineering wasn't good. There is accountability for it. If you design something wrong, big problems. So would you not be very sad if you were the engineer in charge of that bridge? I think it'd be very sad. We have spoken at work about about self-driving cars. Would we want to be the programmer in charge of writing that code? No. Nope, because if there's an accident, there have been, there will be more, and somebody dies, your code was running. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there. Similarly, there was another example I was going to talk about. I don't know. Oh, Boeing 737. So the Boeing 737 had 2 planes go down, I believe, and then they like grounded the entire fleet of 737s because of a flaw in the software. That was the result of a failure of hardware. So, they had, to my understanding, we looked it up at work and kind of had a discussion about it. There is a measurement instrument on either side to get the pitch of the plane, and one of them failed. And when one instrument fails out of 2, which one do you pick as your source of truth? Unknown. If you have 3 and 1 fails, the other 2 should be in agreement. So if you have the other 2 within some margin of error of agreement, you say, okay, those 2 are right. This one is wrong. We have an answer. Well, what happened is there was only 2. One of them failed. The other did not. And it said that the plane was pitching. I think it said that the plane was pitching up, but it was actually pitching down. And so the pilots were pulling back on the yoke, saying, we're going down, we need to go up. But the software was saying, we're already going up. If we go up more, we're going to stall. We will not honor your request to pull up, to pitch up. And so it just kept pitching down and crashed. So imagine being the programmer on that code. I couldn't, I don't want to. So, oh my, Zoomy Tomato just said real engineers know to index at 1. Right there, right down here. Here it comes. Programmers index as 0, by the way. Dr. Nimrod said pilot tubes. Airlines cheaped out and didn't pay for sensors in both sides. Tech that has been used in air-to-air refueling for decades. I don't quite know what you mean there, but so they cheaped out on on some of the instrumentation. Oh, pitot tubes. Okay. The airspeed tubes on planes. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, whatever it was, whether it was pitch or speed or something like that, the plane was making a mistake in because it didn't have, because my understanding is that it had 2 of them instead of 3, and it just picked one. So, and it was the wrong one. Right. Anyway, got a little diverged there.
Both conceptually true would violate the law of non-contradiction.
Okay, gotcha, man. So I would dispute pretty much everything that you just said. So the issue is your inability to conceptualize the fact that general relativity serves as a superset of Newton's theory.
Oh yeah,
and
perfect.
Also hinges on your, I think, misinterpretation of how strong Newton believed the ether applied to gravitation. So let me go each of those points in turn, and let's kind of talk about that, because I think that's the fun.
My guess is he will not be allowed to go each of those points in turn and talk about it.
Mental framing, that's the issue.
Okay, start with the last one.
Wait. Let me respond, dude. Let me respond.
I just talked for a long time. I'm just saying, start with the last one.
Well, I'm going to go through.
How about, I'll do it as I want. You're not the boss of me.
As I want to go through it, man.
Do you agree we should go by point?
Why?
That's what he just said. You douchebag asshole.
What are you talking meta, bro? Let me just respond.
What? So, dude, going point by point is the opposite of meta.
Okay, let's not waste time here. Like, I got to work in a couple hours.
Okay. Will you explain why I overstated Newton saying there had to be an ether?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you're referring to
all right, Sealion, you let him dictate. Don't let him dictate. Go in the order you want. It's your turn to respond. He got to go a long time monologuing.
Different things. He was fairly clear on the existence of an ether for optics, but specifically, when we talk about Newton's etheric...
Oh, hey, I showed up there. I said Austin must micromanage the conversation.
Theory of gravity, there was no such absolute nature, right? So you're aware, right, that when he talked about things in optics, right, he postulated that it may be the case that this ether that he posited had to exist for the purpose of optics, which aligns with Fresnel's theory, which led into Michelson-Morley, was not necessitated for gravity to work. It was merely a postulate. Now, when we think about the relationship between Einstein and Newton, again, I can show you papers, and let me go pull them from my server, and I'll provide them to you. But essentially, we can derive Newtonian theory from Einstein's theory. That's what I'm telling you. And you can choose to believe that or not. When you're talking about these, what you see as a fundamental contradiction, none of these actually end up being contradictions. So
that's why you can't address any of them.
I will address them.
He just did.
So when we talk about absolute motion, yes, that's true.
Okay. Here, by the way, so I commented here, right? Gotta avoid the things that spotlight his hypocrisy. Dawn hates me. Where if I'm ever in a server and trying to have a conversation with people, Dawn is there, always just poking at me. I completely ignore him. So yeah, Dawn is a he. Dawn is short for Dawn Treader, which is from Chronicles of Narnia. And he hates me so much. He's a glober. But I don't think he's an atheist, but he acts like an atheist. I don't quite understand him. I just ignore him. I think he hates it too.
Did posit that there was this idea of an absolute reference frame. Now, when we talk about relativity, we do move to relative reference frames. The idea of the aether, we already talked about. The existence of an aether, you can't even really show that Newton's construct of an aether is fundamentally constructively different than Einstein's notion of space-time. So that's the first thing there.
Okay, can we call?
That's it. That's an interesting thing. And this is a bait and switch that Witsit, I think, got from Gleam. So there are a lot of different descriptions of things that get the name ether, but they have different descriptions. So it's good to use a different to somehow delineate them. So in both Michelson-Morley and Airy's failure, they use the term undulating theory of light. So the undulating theory of light is the ether as they were testing, which is that light is a wave that is traveling through the actual medium of ether, like a wave travels through the medium of water, or a sound travels through the medium of the air. That's what the undulating theory of light is. But there are other ideas of an underlying structure that get the name ether, but is not at all described as light being a wave traveling through and undulating through a medium. Totally different descriptions. And so they do this bait and switch, because Einstein later used the word ether, but not talking about undulating theory of light, talking about some other description of it. But they do this bait and switch. It's super dishonest how they do that, because it's a different definition for it.
Can we pause on the ether, man?
Stop interrupting me. Gravity is a force. You're correct in the sense that curvature of space-time induces paths along a geodesic. However, again, when we're dealing with low energy and especially static environments, what we achieve.
Ooh, I got invited by. Hold on, get on screen here. I got invited by Crimson Crusader to go in VC to talk to Witsit. I said he will run It's His Thing happily. I was wrong about this one. That will be a different night this week, probably Thursday.
Is a force, and we have an induced force by that geodesic motion. Moreover, as I said, and you can't refute, we can derive the Newtonian theory from Einstein, and that's the last piece about Newtonian.
Just repeating yourself.
There's nothing about Einstein's theory that then invalidates Newtonian mechanics. And the reason I brought up orbital mechanics and Kepler's laws is that you seem to think that it's required to use relativity to predict orbits. That's not the case. We can predict all of the orbits of the solar system.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can.
What about Mercury? Yeah, sit down. Okay, now let me explain.
Asshole. Total asshole. You know what Witsit can't do? Predict the orbit of Mercury. The only thing I know of that accurately predicts the orbit of Mercury is relativity, general relativity. There are a couple other things that people have proposed. They're not flat earthers, as non-relativity based solutions for it. I don't know if they're that good. I haven't looked into them much. I've just seen people yapping about it.
Explain why you didn't address anything.
So we talk about the orbits of the planets.
Does relativity and Newtonian mechanics make different predictions for Mercury's orbit? Yes or no?
Yes, they do. But you know what, Witsit? You know what? None of your stuff predicts the orbit of Mercury at all. Not even a little bit. Nothing in flat Earth predicts the orbit of Mercury. You don't even know where Mercury is. In flat Earth, you have no clue. It's just a big old mystery to you.
I don't know off the top of my head, sir.
Well, yes, they do. That's actually one of the claims to fame of relativity, was that they fixed the issue, that they lowered the error of the Mercury's perihelion shift. Now,
how much?
Now, that means that fundamentally they're not even the same mathematically. They're making different orbital predictions.
Hold on. How far off?
It doesn't matter. See, this is
it matters.
Hold on, man. If I tell you that it's 1%, or
it doesn't matter if it's 0.050 is 1%.
Let me remind everybody, nothing of Witsit has any predictive ability. Not 1%, not 10%, not 99% off, infinity% off, because it can predict exactly nothing.
Different mathematically, or you wouldn't get different mathematical predictions.
That's not how it works.
Yes,
you're smarter than that to know that's not how it works, sir. So
you're saying that they're exactly the same, but they give different mathematical predictions.
Let me ask you something. Would you make a big deal about it? So you always say, and there's a good point, that dark matter, galaxies were found to be off, not quite by an order of magnitude, but something like 90% of the matter was missing, right?
All right, let's just take a quick aside here. Here is Einstein's paper, let's see, the Berlin Years, Writings 1914 to 1917, English translation, page 116, the perihelion motion of Mercury. So here is a little bit of just a touch of math here. Not going over it. If you want to go over it, maybe ask Clive Wells, or as Mallory says, Sleeve Wells. But here is the final thing here. For Earth and Mars, let's see, start here. The calculation yields for the planet Mercury a perihelion advance of 43 arc seconds per century, while the astronomers assign 45 plus or minus 5 seconds per century as the unexplained difference between observation and the Newtonian theory. This theory, therefore, agrees completely with the observations. So this theory being this referring to general relativity. So general relativity, therefore, agrees completely with the observations. 43 arc seconds per century is within the margin of error of 45 plus or minus 5. For Earth and Mars, the astronomers assigned respectively forward motions of 11 seconds and 9 seconds per century, while our formula yields respectively 4 and 1 second per century. So don't know if the Earth and Mars measurements are still 11. There's no margin of error listed on these. I don't know why the Mercury one did get a margin of error. So maybe these numbers have been updated in the last century, and so it'd be interesting to see if these have updated. But relativity predicts Earth will have 4 arc seconds per century of precession, and Mercury just 1 arc second. So very small numbers, probably measurable at this point, but probably maybe not very measurable at that point. And that's maybe why they got the rather large numbers of 11 and 9 comparatively, because they're down in the noise floor. So there it is. So there you go. And so Witsit is trying now to draw somehow. It's weird. It's weird. Witsit is trying to say that this here, the accurate prediction of the perihelion of Mercury, is somehow in disagreement with Newtonian physics. But here's, I don't think I'm going to be able to run through it. So let me see if I can go. No, I'm not going to be able to. I've gone through this particular process here in video. Somebody has there's a couple videos where people have done the Newtonian limit for relativity. And so you take the matrices, it's a 4x4 matrix. And when you do a couple things with it, like have the reference frame be not moving near the speed of light, and not be near a large gravitational source, that clears out a whole bunch of that 4x4 matrix, and brings you, and that's part of how you get to the part of the steps that you get to the Newtonian limit. So and so within our reference frame, which is not traveling near the speed of light and not near a large gravitational mass, then Newtonian physics is what you get. It is, like in everything in meat space, an approximation. There is a margin of error. The question is, how many digits of precision do you need? Are you good with 15 digits of precision? Well, then stick with Newtonian, unless you're talking about Mercury, where you may need 13 digits of precision. I don't know. I'm just throwing out numbers there. 45 arc seconds per century. How many sig fig is that deep in compared to a degree? You're talking it's 1/3,600th. So you're sitting down deep in degrees per century. You're sitting about 4 digits deep. But when you move that into an application of the physical position of it, which is in the range of millions of kilometers, and you're talking millions of kilometers in 45 arc seconds per century. When you go from year to year, right, you divide that by 100, you're sitting at 4.5 arc seconds per 10 years, 0.4 arc seconds per year, times the millions of miles. It's a very small, very deep in the sig fig there that you're talking about. So, the point being, in all of this, you don't need that precision. You don't use Einsteinian. You can be satisfied with not using those many significant figures. But he doesn't like that. He doesn't. I keep accidentally putting this one up, but I think it's funny. All right. Sealion Prime. Oh, I guess I'm on. Isotter 74 says, not rats, lobsters. I don't know what that means. Not rats, lobsters. I don't know. Is it a pronunciation thing that comes out? I don't hear it. Josh Garver says, once again, late to the party. And it's Josh Garver's third super chat. Yay. Sealion Prime says, Dawn hates me too. He never forgave me for not watching his 5-hour Masonic testimony video. Oh, Dawn. Dawn is so sad. I can't imagine living Dawn's life. It'd be just such a sadness. Isotter 74 says, Witsit would be a MathNet villain they'd catch by Tuesday. And Josh Garver again comes in with Witsit is wrong here. You can, within error, describe mathematically why parabolic orbit describes the phenomenon. Number 3, thanks for the recognition, Lisa. Was Lisa here too? Lisa, there it is. Yep. Hey, Lisa. Lisa, who asked last week about the sand that I'm getting. I didn't elaborate why. I'll tell you why right now. YouTube pays me once a month, and so when a super chat comes in until I actually receive it in my bank account, it takes a while. I get it on the 21st of the month typically. So the stuff from last month is 11 days from now. So 11 days from now, that's when the check comes in. So that's when I'll place the order. So that's why. And I was ambiguous last week, and I thought about it in retrospect. I should be more clear. So that's why I didn't yet order the sand. And I had in because I hit the top. Actually, I filled the drive. I filled the drive and I filled up Dropbox, and I'm like, okay, because I'm not careful, right? I'm just chuck everything out there. So I'm like, okay, let me clear some stuff out. So I cleared out 3 terabytes. Yes, I cleared 3 terabytes in half an hour. I can only go so deep clearing stuff, but I was able to clear that out to give me plenty of runway. So my check really comes from NASA, says Eric E., master of flat earth theory. No, shh, don't tell I'm hunting wabbits.
99% in a specific cluster.
Yeah. Okay. If it was 0.1%.
Oh, lobsters in a bucket, not rats in a bucket. That's what that was about. From Isotter 74. Lobsters in a bucket will pull each other down if one starts to get out. There you go. Thank you for that correction.
It would be way weaker evidence, correct?
Yeah, but the reason that's not analogous, if you just censor every time I speak, I'm going to disengage. The reason that's...
Oh, if you just censor every time I speak. Witsit, you're the one doing that. You're the one that just wouldn't, you couldn't let him finish.
not analogous is because you are making the claim that they are synonymous. They are the same thing. That isn't true. You actually made the specific claim that you can use them both to make the exact same orbital predictions in the solar system. Okay? For one, that doesn't even matter because gravity would apply everywhere, not just the solar system, but you're wrong about that anyway because it doesn't make the same predictions for all the orbits in the solar system, and specifically Mercury's perihelion shift is different. So when you say they make the same orbital prediction, and then I say, no, they make different orbital predictions, look at Mercury, for you to then respond and say, well, how different is it? It's a small number. It's totally irrelevant. It's a red herring. It's a deflection. It directly refutes your claim that they're the same prediction. Okay,
no. Here's what's really interesting. This doesn't help Witsit at all. The fact that general relativity accurately predicts the perihelion shift in Mercury's orbit is a death sentence to anybody rejecting relativity, which solves to F equals G m1 m2 over r squared in our reference frame. And in our reference frame means, again, not moving at a high speed, not near a large gravitational mass. It doesn't help you, Witsit. It highlights your complete failure. What is, Witsit, what is your answer for the perihelion shift of Mercury? Oh, you got to walk before you can run, Witsit. You can't explain the magnitude of the downward acceleration. You can't even explain the direction of the downward acceleration. You can't.
To point out something about the galaxy number, and it is totally irrelevant.
No, it's very relevant because the degree of difference matters a lot in science. And the other thing, too, if you listen carefully to my point and properly steelman it, is that I said under certain conditions, it reduces. So thank you for correcting me with regards to Mercury that those conditions don't apply. Do you know why they don't apply?
Don't pretend you know why when you didn't even know it was a thing.
Well, now I do because I have a foundation.
No, your side doesn't even claim to know what the cause for the difference in Mercury's perihelion shift is. It's still disputed to this moment. What? And in fact, it's not even, relativity can't even be created by back engineering it to make it fully predict Mercury's perihelion shift. It's just much closer. It's just much closer. In fact, there's different things. There's something called the Kerr metric, right?
Of course. One more reminder. Witsit can't explain any of this using his model.
The Kerr metric, which is one of the things that's like one of the most famous ones used. They've proposed things like, oh, well, maybe there's a different level of black body radiation. Maybe there's a different amount of charge. Maybe there's a planet that we don't see. They fit all.
It's fun reading my comments. I just said this, and then I just typed it here. Witsit relativity predicts precession of Mercury. Witsit predicts, what does he predict? Nothing.
All these things into the equation to try to explain Mercury's perihelion shift. Okay, because there's not even agreed upon on why it works. The point is Mercury is just considered an anomaly, and relativity supposedly does a better job of predicting that anomaly than Newtonian mechanics. But I want to not lose this bigger part here about the ether. Newton said it very clearly. He said, I don't know exactly what the cause of gravity is. And he said, I hope that no one attributes that to me. I don't know what it is. He said, in my opinion, it would require a direct act of God. I can't even comprehend it. But he said one thing. He made one. So he was intellectually honest in that way. He was very, very specific.
Oh, look at that, Jeremy. They get a little triggered. MC Toon, if I just came here to talk trash about Witsit nonstop, go somewhere else and do it, please. But Witsit's the one in monologuing in the voice chat here. Nothing wrong with having a discussion about the topic, is there?
Specific to not make a specific causal claim. But however, he did make one very specific, unequivocal assertion, right? And he said that the idea that this matter would act on other innate brute matter through the vastness of a vacuum. So say one planet acting on another planet, say the sun acting on another planet through the vastness of a vacuum, right? The idea that gravity would act on matter through the vastness of a vacuum without an intermediary medium, right, is to me.
All this is beside the point. This is just a quote from Newton. This isn't an experiment. This isn't an application of what he proposed. It's irrelevant, and it's 400 years old. Einstein resolved all of these things. So okay, fine. Newton didn't have an answer for it. No surprise. Science is like that. You make a step, The next one, don't know. Make a step. Next one, you don't know. Oh, we figured that one out now. What about the next one? Oh, there's another layer we don't understand yet. Normal science. That's how it works. And so what's the next step beyond mass attracting mass? Space-time. Got it. Now, what's the next step beyond that? Don't know yet. We're working on it.
Me, so great an absurdity that no man with competent faculty of thinking and philosophical matters could ever fall into it. And whether this medium is material or immaterial, I have left to the consideration of the readers.
Isn't that great? Oh, I said... I mean, I could just read my own commentary here. Quotes are not evidence. Quantum foam. Just kidding. That's step 11, says I see spin. Absolutely. That's the thing. He's... Quantum foam is another, sometimes people say, oh, that's a form of ether. Yep, but it's not the undulating theory of light.
Second point is if you understand Newtonian gravity, there has to be an ether because there is no time variation.
What? Why? This is what I don't get. He just spouts this off. No accountability. Where is this from? Don't know.
In the equation, which means it's instant. In order to have instantaneous action at a distance, you have to have a medium with mutual contact at the least. And he said even incorporating that, it boggles the mind, and I can't understand how it worked unless it was God doing it. So gravity in Newtonian's framework fundamentally requires a background medium called the ether. And in Einstein, specifically, he does away with the ether. Then he says there is an ether only in the sense that space must be endowed with physical properties. But it is not a mechanical medium. It's not comparable to any ponderable media, right? And it's only there, it's only an ether, quote unquote, in the sense it has physical properties. It must be endowed with physical properties so that we can have something to measure against with measuring rods and clocks. So these are fundamentally different.
Okay, so let me jump off that, man. And so those are all good points. So let me kind of steel man one thing here. So I appreciated the information specifically related to Mercury's orbit, but I think what you're failing to understand on that point is that once we use relativity, from everything that I'm reading, and provide me with sources to the contrary, we predict those factors very closely. And I wanted to get to why those predictions don't work and how it relates to the relationship between general relativity and Newtonian, because you know, right, that Einstein said Newtonian mechanics and Newtonian gravity is a first approximation to general relativity, right? Within his discussion of the framework of general relativity.
Yes, this is where you guys always conflate math and science. Do you know the difference?
I'm going to get into a more meta topic, dude.
No, it's not a meta topic. This is specifically, listen very quickly. The reason this is specifically relevant is math describes things. Yes, we can get to similar mathematical output using Newtonian mechanics or using Einsteinian mechanics, right? Newtonian gravity, Einstein.
Oh, this is a great one from Eric E. Does Witsit know that Coulomb's law for electrostatics also involves instantaneous action at a distance? No propagation delay. By using his same argument. And that's a really good point. Coulomb's law, if you're unaware. Oop, I just bumped my microphone. Did you hear that? Did you hear the thump when I bumped the microphone? Anyway, I'm getting out a book here. Chapter 2. Witsit probably does not, but let's remember for a second. Put in the chat, what is Newton's law of gravitation? Put in the chat, and there we go. Okay. Let me get this ready here. Gotta zoom out a little here. All right, here we go. This is the book I used at university, Foundation of Electromagnetic Theory. Here you go. Electrostatics. Right? Chapter 2. Now, just for reference, Chapter 1 is vectors. So Chapter 1 is not actually about electromagnetism. It's a mathematical review, vector analysis, right? It's showing, it's right. And so you may or may not, on the first week of class, you may or may not actually study vectors. You might just start right here on week 1, day 1 of class. But here we have Coulomb's law. Now, Witsit just said it has to be instantaneous because it doesn't have a time element. Therefore, it can't work, or some crap like that. But let's have a look here. Here's Coulomb's law. Right there. F equals C Q1 times Q2 over R squared. And then these are unit vectors, right? So this is just for knowing the direction and stuff. So, we don't need that because you can see there's no bold letters there. See that bold letters in this book are vectors. So they add this to make it a vector. So a unit vector is just a vector that's 1 unit length. So when you multiply 1 by this, it doesn't modify the magnitude. It just modifies the direction. That's what's happening here. And of course, over R, which is, so 1, 2 is the direction from point 1 to point 2. And of course, F being bolded is a force equals C, which is not bold, so it's not a force. So anyway, there you go. And R12 is R1 minus R2. That's the difference between them. So yeah, there's no time component in there, Austin. How does that work? No time component. Does that mean that this is instantaneous? Nope, it doesn't. So anyway, back in the book there goes the bookmarker. All right. Boy, that is zoomed in. All right.
Gravity, of course, because we have a phenomena that we're trying to explain. Say an object falls at 9.8 meters per second squared. Okay, we can measure how fast that object falls, and we get an average 9.8. We know it falls at that rate before we ever propose any.
That's not an average. Right, 9.8. If you just measure it once, it's not an average.
Theories as to why or how it falls at that rate, right? So whatever we come up with has to give us that number, because that's the whole point. We're proposing a theory to explain that number. So the math, the description of the phenomenon is 9.8. Now the proposed cause, the explanation as to how or why it falls at 9.8 is totally different than the mathematical description, the quantification, right? One says it's the bending and warping of space-time. One says that the mass of the Earth is generating a force that acts on the ball and it pulls it down. So these are fundamental.
They're oh, geez. What's he about to say?
Really different explanations, although they both give us the same mathematical output. Do you understand how those are fundamentally different? What I'm saying is that conceptually, in terms of physics, in terms of explanation, they cannot coexist. They are contradictory. They cannot be considered the same thing at all. It is so low IQ to claim that they're the same thing because you can get the same numbers. I don't know why all the Globers keep saying this.
Why are you gonna go with those little dicks, man? It's like, you know the fucking Talladega Nights, where he keeps saying with all due respect and then insulting the guy. That's kind of.
I'm not saying you have low IQ. I'm saying it's a stupid argument. So do you understand why it's a stupid argument?
All right. Well, you're going to back off on the ad hoc, but that's okay.
No, I wasn't. First of all, it wasn't an ad hoc because that's attacking the person in place of the argument. But sure, I shouldn't have said low IQ. I'm saying the argument is low IQ. It is, and that's why either A, if people don't want to be honest about the conversation, either A, they don't want to be honest about the conversation, or B, they're not understanding what I just said. And I don't think that you're stupid, which means you understand what I just said. So can you please exercise some intellectual honesty and acknowledge that those are fundamentally different things?
No, because I think we have a fundamentally different understanding of what that means. So when we describe Newton, like, you're aware of
a good point here by Omnivore up at the top. I mean, Witsit just quoted Newton saying that mass attracting mass across space is absurd. That doesn't mean that Newton thought his law was absurd.
The difference between natural laws and theories and how they relate to each other, right?
Yeah, how does that have anything to do with this?
Oh, it has a lot to do with it, because what is Newtonian gravity? Is it a theory or a natural law?
It's not a natural law. It's claimed to be a scientific law.
Well, what's the difference?
Yeah. Okay, natural law is just a naturally occurring observable phenomena that always happens that we document. Scientific law is proposing a cause and effect relationship.
Wow.
Okay, so you think that
Is that the case? Is that the case? Anyway, gravity is a natural law by that definition.
I would say it's a scientific law, not a natural law.
That's what it is, right? Because say second law of thermodynamics is a natural law, but what's the cause of entropy? No one knows. No one even claims to know. But the scientific law proposes a cause. So Newton proposes a
No, I
cause.
don't think that's the case. So all I see is scientific law, and I'll provide you with plenty of sources here. So all scientific law, I mean, I'll provide the Stanford Encyclopedia here, is simply a description of the property of the natural world postulated through observation, experimentation, and analysis. Now, that's my personal definition, but here's the laws of nature entry from the Stanford Encyclopedia. Gravity itself is a law, by your own admission, although Newton had some later theories.
So who is on, Josh Garver, who's on the $2 bill? Jefferson. There it is. This is you can see the barrel right here of the P1000 there. There it is, Jefferson. Get a good look at it there. Oh, I never saw that before. See that there? What is that? Is that normal? I don't know if that's normal. Yeah, that's not a trash can. That's the P1000. But yeah, I guess if you want to say it, yes, there is a trash can in my head because the P1000 has some issues. Anyway, so here's the back of it. There you go. The Declaration of Independence, 1776. There you go. Nice close-up of it. How much closer can we get and still be in focus? How close this? I'm sure the P1000 can get. Now I got to focus it. Oh, it might be beyond its ability to focus. Yeah, it can't get any more. There you go. That's about all it will do. That's about it. Series 2017. So when Grandma gets you a $2 bill for your birthday because she thinks that they're super cool and valuable, more valuable than $2, she's wrong. They're worth exactly $2. It's the $2 note, not the $2 bill, that has some special value. Good luck finding them. They don't look like this. All right. All right, let me get this barrel out of my face. The trash can, there it is. You know what? Let's try this. I'll get the I'll go to full extent. There it is. There's the P1000. Yes, it does. Beast Militia. It looks like a Steve Urkel stamp. All right, zooming back up. So this is why the flatties like this camera so much, because its zoom is so much. The camera's flexing. It's moving around on me. Oh, come on. It's a pretty serious mount that I have. Was that there before? Could you see it before? I don't know. Anyway, okay. All right. Back to business here. There it is. Keep that book right here. It's the right thickness for my armrest. So, all right. Well, before we'll go to it here. Sealion Prime says, if ether isn't really explained for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, checkmate Einstein. If ether isn't real, explain Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, checkmate Einstein. Got it. He spelled really instead of real. Josh Garver says, as far as we know, Einstein died in 1727. Have we not learned anything since? Of course not. That is state of the art. Actually, for flatties, 1727 is significantly newer than they accept. Right? They reject any movement, so they got to go before Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, prior to all of them. Bruno Giordano. You got to go before all of them to get the stationariness, but everybody still thought the Earth was a globe, so it's not really very good. So really, you need to go to about 500 BC, prior to Pythagoras proposing that the Earth is a sphere. Now, he didn't propose it because of evidence. He just thought that it made sense. So, yeah, I think this is. There we go. It's a heavy camera to mount up there. I think I posted some pictures of it. It's kind of it's kind of funny. So this whole wall above me here is a bookshelf that I built years ago. And it's full of books, just all packed full of books. They're mostly school books. We homeschool, so it's mostly our school books. So every year, August, September, my wife's digging up in here, grabbing stuff. And then I put a stack of hard drives right there and a 1x4 piece of wood. And then on that, do I have it here? Oh yeah, so I have this right here. This is what the camera is mounted on, and then this is connected to a pipe that's 6-7 inches long that's telescoping, and then that's screwed into the wood up there, and and that wood sticks out from the bookshelf. And it's wedged between the hard drives and this. All right, screw this. Let me give you a picture. Where's my phone? There it is. I'll just give you a picture. Why am I just saying it? I can. All right, hold on. I gotta make sure. I didn't want to have anything that you shouldn't see. All right. I don't know. Do you care? You're seeing how the sausage is made. That's what you're seeing here. I don't know if you care or not, but you're going to get it. You're going to get a sample right here. All right, got it. All right. There's that. Oh, it's an HEIC. So I need to export it as not PDF, PNG. There we go. All right. Okay. There it is. So you get to see it. So there is the camera pointing down. And you can see I got to slightly adjust it. There you go. So you can see the top of the screen. You can't quite see, just off the bottom edge is this camera you're looking at here. Yeah, so you can see the hard drives. You can see on top of the hard drives, I have a roll, because it was the right thickness, of aluminum duct tape. Why that? Because I had it around. It was the right thickness. And it's wedged up there. I moved some books. See that stack of books on the next shelf up? That's to get some weight, because when I put the camera in, then that piece of wood tried to move the shelf above it. So I put in some more books, and those books are wedged up to the next shelf to get the mass of the books above it pushing down on it. Then to the right, you see a circular light pointing up. That's the light that's always on in this room. Anyway, so then you see coming off the left side of the camera is the HDMI cable that goes down to my cam link. And on the right side, you see a cable going out. That's the USB pass-through that powers it without having a battery. So Aaron Reese is from the heart of Appalachia. I approve of your redneck rig. Yeah, thank you very much. So I did get, last week I used it too, but I didn't quite have the settings figured out right so that it gave a good picture. This now gives a little better picture. So Real Cygnus says, it's confirmed I'm a real engineer. Thank you for that. Okay. We got here. Otto says, I don't normally not say things, and this time I didn't also. Thank you for didn't alsoing saying things. Generally Shady says, general relativity, smart cousin, I'm the black sheep. General relativity, General E Shady. See that? So, Josh Garver says MC Tune with the Jefferson. Oh, the Jefferson, I asked what that meant, and I missed that it was the person on the bill. And then you asked me about on the bill, and I didn't connect them. Now I did. Thank you for that, Josh Garver. Lisa says, MC Tune, you are smart. You make things go. Of the Packlids. Pistina the First is a member at Newton. Thank you for that. Okay, let's get back to it. We'll keep going a bit more. This goes on for longer. We'll only do part of it tonight.
The law itself doesn't posit any causal mechanism. By your own admission, right? Because we have action at a distance, and then he had to posit potentially ether as an explanation later on.
No, but the actual application of the equation, certainly in modern times, but just period, actually implicitly invokes a cause. If you say mass attracts mass, that's a causal claim. That's a causal claim.
Well, not exactly, because we have a link. We know that it's a property in the same way that we know that entropy increases, right? We know that there's laws of thermodynamics, but
what's the cause of entropy?
What's the cause of entropy?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the cause of entropy.
Dude, it's a trick question. No one knows the answer to that. Admittedly, no one knows.
What we're talking about. If we have a very specific system, then we absolutely.
So Austin, flat earthers, science deniers, they do this. They find the edges of science, the parts of science that aren't yet understood, and then they poke at them. They say, "Oh, look, you don't understand this. Therefore, everything else is wrong." No. These are the things we're attempting to understand. So what is the next layer cause down from everything? Doesn't matter. Pick your topic in science. What's the next layer down? Don't know yet. That's why we're studying it. Adjust your window where we can see you typing, or don't. But everyone can in the chat box. Oh yeah, you can there. You know what? Here, hold on. I try a little more. Hold on. I can. There you go. I actually have two of these windows right here. Two of them. One on each screen, and I try to remember to not use this one to type into. But when I do it right, like I am now, you can't see it. What I need to do is I just need to drag the window as tall as I can on the screen. And as long as I don't go 2 layers deep, wrap a line around, you don't get to see it. But I'm responding to Eric E. There we go.
We could say that.
No, we never know. We don't know the actual cause of the phenomenon called entropy, right? We just document that entropy happens. And this is off in the weeds because I really want you to acknowledge that they're different. And what always happens, bro, is when I point out that they're fundamentally different, they're antithetical, they make opposite claims conceptually in terms of an explanatory position. They make opposite claims. I always get the response of, you can derive the same formula, you can get the same output, you can get the same solution. That's irrelevant. That is a red herring. I'm saying if one says gravity's a force, one says gravity's not a force. One says there's neither, one says there's not either. One says an object will continue in a straight path unless an actual force.
Oh my gosh. Just his script. Just his script. It's this, he's leveraging his misunderstanding of the topic and proclaiming that he's an expert at the same time. Right? In our reference frame, gravity is a force. In the larger frame, it's not. Not a problem. In our reference frame, an object in motion will continue in motion. In the larger reference frame, there's curved geodesics. Right? It's the point. That's the point of relativity.
Force acts on it, and then another one says no, objects can go straight and curve without an actual force acting on it. These are opposite claims. It would violate the law of non-contradiction to say that they're both true.
Well, we'll get to that, but the thing is, again, we're positing a particular law that is a statement about what is observed, that there is a resultant force in certain contexts that is produced, we don't know why, we don't know the causal mechanism in Newton, between two masses. Okay, that's the fundamental thing. That's what he identified. Now, when we get to Einstein, that's what I'm talking about, the difference between a theory and a natural law. Because the natural law itself of gravity, and even to this day, if we get to the quantum level, we don't have the exact cause. But it's interesting, right, that Newton found a law, he postulated a law, and Einstein inductively derived, well, that's what he did.
Newton didn't find anything. Newton took Kepler's laws, which are kinematics, and then he
Hold on. Remember what he just said a little bit ago. He said Kepler's laws and Newtonian mechanics are not compatible. They're not related to each other. Remember what he said? I was beside myself when he said that. Listen up.
He just plugged mass in there. And he didn't come up with or discover or find anything. He used kinematics. That's why you can literally, when you begin to solve the equation, you just end up with a kinematic equation.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, there's a lot more to the mathematics than what you're describing.
So he just said, now, contradicting his previous claim, that Kepler's laws and Newtonian mechanics are related. He can't make up his mind.
Okay, dude, I can still make your position. You guys say, no, Newtonian and Einstein both apply. Einstein just built upon it. Einsteinian mechanics is the same. You can derive it from each other or vice versa. But all it is an expansion that goes more into more extreme scenarios with higher energy and higher speeds and higher in the presence of higher gravitational fields due to masses, etc. Like, I know this, that is wrong because they are fundamentally opposite conceptually. In physics, we're trying to understand how the world works. That's what physics is. Science is to know knowledge. How does the world work?
And Witsit doesn't know the first thing about how the world works in his proposal. He can't explain a sunset. He can't explain why things are obstructed bottom up. He can't explain why reciprocal zenith angles sum to greater than 180. He can't explain why large triangles sum to more than 180. He can't explain why there is a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. He can only deny that. Blind faith denialism. He can't provide a mechanism that explains the magnitude of 9.8 meters per second squared down. He can't explain down. He says electrostatics provides the bias, except according to this book that I had just on screen a couple seconds ago, minutes ago, electrostatics is either direction, one direction or the other, depending on charges. He just says everything goes down regardless of the charge. So wrong. He can't explain the first thing, not one single thing of using flat Earth. Not one. He can't explain phases of the moon. They become etherically displaced. He can't explain the southern lights. He says they are centripetal divergence, or centripetal convergence, and centrifugal divergence. I think that's what he says. Doesn't matter. It's word salad.
Proposing ideas or theories to explain how the world works. We have two ideas here. We have one claiming gravity works this way, one claiming gravity works the other way. Okay, so conceptually, they cannot both be accurate. And any physicist worth their salt will tell you, of course, we know that Newtonian mechanics isn't actually true. It's just very useful. In fact, any physicist worth their
Gosh. Here he is, this idiot asshole that knows nothing about physics, telling everybody else what I want to say physicians. Physicists know and don't know. Here's the reality, Austin. Very rarely does anybody need to use Einstein field equations to determine the motions, right? You generally are just going to use the Newtonian law of gravitational attraction. Icy Spin says, I know we've hit our quota of one per show, but would you see that would you see if the executive producer would approve one more hoedown before the sun rises? Oh, I'll wrap it up with a hoedown too. PhD Tony has this totally right. Yeah, all models are wrong. Some models are useful. And yeah, they miss that. They're like, if yours isn't perfect, it's no good. Wait, yours is no perfect. Yours is not yours, Witsit, yours does nothing. Nothing at all. We have a whole lot of things we can do with ours, but because you think ours isn't perfect enough, that yours is wrong. You know, the model that you don't have.
We don't have a model.
Yeah, you don't have a model. Kango44 says, I'm a bit behind the stream. Real programmers use Lua and index at 1? Lua? What the crap? Who uses Lua? You need to be seriously, like if you want to use Lua, if you enjoy Lua, then you enjoy getting your thumbs cut off. You enjoy having your toenails removed with a rusty needle nose pliers. That's the kind of people that like Lua. Josh Carver with third super chat, by the way, says, as a physicist, who the F is Austin to speak for me? Number 3. The arrogance.
So now I'll tell you, we know relativity isn't actually true. We know it's not the final answer. We know that we're going to have to replace it. They'll all just say, but whatever comes in the future, we'll have to at least explain as much as relativity does. So that's my point, is that everyone knows they aren't actually the same. It's just an anti-flat Earth talking point.
So you're just making
how is this anti-flat Earth?
Hold on, don't jump in, please. So you're making statements on appeals to consensus. Just back those up, because I don't think they're accurate appeals to consensus. The other thing, though, as it pertains to the conversation that we're talking about, is a fundamental misunderstanding of the way that Newton posited his framework versus how Einstein did. Newton in no way posited an explanatory theory of the cause of gravity. By your own admission, and you're correct, so you obviously understand this at some level, he looked at Kepler's laws and the studies of Galileo related to acceleration, and Galileo specifically, the thing of the 2 drops from the Pisa Tower is kind of apocryphal, but what he actually did was he looked at the rate at which objects accelerated on a ramp, dropping essentially balls down a ramp. Now, Newton took those observations, which was something that you're sort of missing in your understanding, and he also looked at Kepler's laws, which you're right, don't posit anything, and Kepler essentially guessed in a sense and got it right. And he used those to derive a natural law that describes gravitation, and it's been validated countless times. That law remains true in most important contexts on Earth. What's different is relativity comes in as a wider experience, experience is a bad word, a wider theory that encompasses Newtonian theory in certain contexts and provides that explanatory mechanism. What you're talking about with the ether specifically, it's telling that what you say about the ether and how Newton thought about it was essentially based on this idea of some sort of medium, which he himself said was not necessarily physical. So relativity, in some sense, is the replacement of this idea of an ether, which was similar to the luminiferous ether that he was developing in optics, for this idea of space-time. But what you can't deny is that in practical contexts on Earth, the results that you get from Einstein's theory reduce to the results of Newton.
This is, I'm going to roll back just a little bit here. So, flat earthers don't understand. And flat earthers think that when we say they don't understand, that somehow we are the ones at fault. So, let's see, Omnivore here says on screen, if you understand it, then yeah, it's easy in the other way. Right? Witsit's whole argument is nonsense. And then SE Montreal says, again, we misunderstand. So they in their echo chambers have all told each other, hey, when they just accuse us of not understanding, I don't know exactly what they said, but they like to point out somehow that it's wrong for us to identify that they don't understand. SE Montreal, the fact that you don't understand is true and is a problem that is on you, not us. It's okay for us to identify that you don't understand. And really, since you're not interested in understanding, it's not number 3, it's not our place to make you understand. That's your problem. Number 4, even if we did attempt to educate you, you don't want to learn. So it doesn't matter. You're just faking that you want to learn. And then you've got Harp says, Earth is measured flat. Ex Mortis is evidence of this. NASA Shield says, please provide these measurements. Ex Mortis says, Effie been saying that a lot lately, but still waiting for someone to provide those real world measurements showing it's flat.
Results that you get from Einstein's theory reduce to the results of Newton. And the explanatory power is coming from Einstein's theory describing why the natural law works in that context. And the reason it does.
Here we got Matthias is Lamau. That's all he has is novice coping mechanism of you don't understand. That poor thing. But Matthias, if you don't understand, it's not somebody coping. It's you not understanding. That's a you problem, not an us problem.
Doesn't work. Again, this gets to the causal factor and the fact that it's not just math. The fact that it doesn't work as the Newtonian breaks down around the sun is due to the extreme gravity well of the sun. And that's why we need to posit Newton's theory with Einstein in that case. But when we talk about something like the Cavendish experiment or any torsion balance experiment, there's no need for relativity.
Okay, that's what you're saying. There's no need for it because you can mathematically satisfy the observation or quote unquote experiment without it. That is a non sequitur because we're talking about the conceptual interpretation, the explanatory power. And
now we're not talking about the conceptual interpretation. You're trying to steer it that way, Austin. He was just mentioning a real empirical measurement, and you just want to talk about conceptual nonsense. Because, let's face it, if you actually talk about experiments, real measurements, you kind of fall flat.
This happens every time. It's like a mental block where people can't understand there's a difference in math and science. And first of all, I didn't appeal to consensus. And appeal to consensus is me saying this must be true because all these people think it. I didn't do that. I also didn't appeal to authority. I didn't say this must be true because any physicist worth their salt will tell you this. I made a specific argument as to why. And then because I have...
Man, look at how many of them are whining about being told that they don't understand. I mean, this is a Discord server full of people that don't understand, that aren't capable of understanding, that assemble every day to pat themselves on the back to console themselves for not understanding. And when you point out to them that they don't understand, they all poop their pants.
Have to try to fight through the programming of the way that most people attribute, value to what they consider to be true. Because it's always like, oh, well, what do all the physicists say? What do all the scientists say? I'm pointing out that even in your own paradigm, this would be the case. It's literally just a tagged on point to try to break through and show we live in this crazy world where anti-flat earthers have created their own version of modern, heliocentrism, modern cosmology to combat flat earth that isn't even...
What are you talking about?
Consistent within their own paradigm. Now,
that isn't even consistent within our own paradigm. Austin, you can't. Oh my gosh, so much projection there. The different flat Earth tribes all disagree with each other about a whole bunch of different stuff. What causes the downward acceleration? Some flat Earthers don't even claim there is a downward acceleration. Oakley claims there is no direction. He thinks that gas doesn't have mass and that it doesn't accelerate down. I mean, how many times have you, Austin, been in a yelling and pissing conversation with another flat earther about the ways that you misunderstand things? I've been reviewing them. It's been glorious. So you don't have a consistent paradigm. No flat earther can provide any mechanism, any explanation, any prediction for anything. You can't. What keeps the sun up? Don't know. What causes the sun to go in circles instead of just going in a straight line? Don't know. What is inside the sun that's causing it to output heat and light? Don't know. Why does the radius of the sun's orbit change? Why does it get bigger and smaller? Don't know. What causes the sun to no longer be seen when it's farther away? Don't know. How far is too far away? Don't know. How far is it from Perth to Sydney? Don't know. It goes on and on. The answer to all these is don't know. You don't know. You know nothing about your own model. None of this conversation has been one time mentioning flat Earth. Every time you refuse to mention flat Earth in your attempts to prove flat Earth, you're acknowledging that the Earth is not flat. What's FTFE's old opener? We're spinning with the tiny sun. I don't know who that was. Bernoulli's law for gas flow contains the term for gravitational potential energy of the gas. So gravity acts on gas. Of course it does. And if you take a vessel and pressurize it by adding more air, that vessel gets heavier. Its mass increases. And flat earthers, rather than acknowledging that putting gas into something increased its mass, they'll say, oh, that's proof that gas needs a container. Wait, you totally missed the point of what we're doing here, didn't you? Of course you did. Always. Stringfellow Hawk says, all models are wrong. Some models are useful, but all models are not. Cindy Crawford. Right. Sealion Prime says, Matthias the Walking Nutjob called me Agent Smith. So, for reference, Matthias the Walking Witness is often his name. And if he's a witness for something, whatever he is a witness for, it's not a good thing because, wow, he's a horrible person. So, if whatever it is that he's attempting to be the witness for must be terrible. He's a gross individual. Josh Garver says, I will also say that I offer physics tutoring for free as well, in addition to math. All levels, no questions asked. Very nice. You know, I think I know somebody from last week that could use a little bit of physics tutoring. Gary from Draft Physics. Josh, did you see that? You should watch that. It was so good. So good. Dave Fear wonders, how did everyone get wrenches? You know what I do, Dave? Every year, every day, not every week, whatever. I don't know. People whose names I recognize, I give a wrench. The reality is that very little moderation needs to happen here. I don't want flat earthers to be timed out. I don't want their comments deleted. I want their insanity preserved here for all humanity to come back to later. The only time I really need something blocked is when they're saying something that YouTube doesn't like, right? Typically, it comes down to talking about the Mustache Man, talking about adults doing things with children that they shouldn't do, and spam, though right now YouTube has a pretty good handle on it. But there used to be a time where like bots would come in. Bots would come in and put in a bunch of spam to go to adult websites, but that's mostly gone. So Isider74 says Sealion Prime, I am that is. I guess he thinks he's the chosen one. You get a lot of that. There are quite a few people in the "we reject the shape of the Earth" crowd that think that they're Jesus.
I went and got this paper for you. I went all the way to my computer to do this, and I'm going to read it. I'm going to read this section because I'm going to read this section of this is specifically, it's called Relativity, Special and General Theory. It's the more simplified version of the two theories combined that Einstein released. Like he's famously quoted as saying something like it's relativity for your mother or something, right? So this is where he explains his two theories. And so these are.
I mean, he could just read the book. It's in the book, right? It's in the preface right there. Page it's a Roman numeral. On the other hand, I've purposely treated the empirical physical foundations of the theory in a stepmotherly fashion. Stepmotherly. That's the word he used.
This is, I think, I don't want to misquote the year, but maybe 1916.
Yeah.
But anyway,
True.
I'm going to read this here. So it says, the second class of facts to which we have alluded has a reference to the question whether or not the motion of the Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments. Okay, so like you said,
well, let's have a look. I really. You think Witsit would benefit by watching one of my streams here? I think he would. I think he might not want to say these things anymore. So anyway, all right, here we go. This is what he just read. The second class of facts to which we've alluded has referenced the question whether or not the motion of Earth in space can be made perceptible in, what's that word? Terrestrial experiments. We've already remarked in section 5 that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. So I double underlined terrestrial. Terrestrial experiments means experiments that don't leave the terrestrial, the Earth. The Earth. Now watch this. This is the right. So he's like, that's Einstein saying that we didn't know that the Earth moves. Right. Now watch this. You're gonna love this. If only Witsit did this. All right. Ready? Ready? One page. I moved it back one page. Let's zoom back in. You ready, Witsit? He'll never see it. We refer to the yearly movement of the apparent position of the fixed stars resulting from the motion of the Earth around the sun, aberration, and to the influence of the radial components of the relative motions of fixed stars with respect to the Earth on the color of the light reaching us from them. So, again, one page. It's just the page prior that he listed how we know that the Earth is moving. And just so for reference, they're not terrestrial experiments. They are outside of terrestrial. The aberration in the position of stars. Position of stars is outside terrestrial experiments, and the color of light reaching us from distant stars outside of terrestrial. Neutrino78 says he wrote a book on the evolution of physics, where he explains the derivation of relativity without any equations. I have read the book. That'd be cool. So let's listen to what he's saying about that quote.
Special relativity wasn't just about Michelson-Morley. It wasn't just about the orbit of the Earth. It covered many things, right? Like it gives an explanation for Maxwell's law, and it's all about the velocity of light. But this is why he says the second class of facts that he's going to explain. Okay, to which we have alluded is the reference to the question whether or not the motion of Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments. We've already remarked in section 5 that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. Here's the key part. Before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult. Dude, you have to listen, please. Before the theory of relativity was put forward. Okay, I dropped it in the chat. It's on page 40. What's up?
Which page is it on? It's hard.
48. 40.
Notice the little screenshot I put in there? That screenshot I put in there is the screenshot highlighting the portion that I read that Witsit doesn't want to read.
Okay, we're at the bottom of 48. Okay, so the final paragraph on 48 says the second class of these facts. Okay, and I'll even share my screen. No, I can't. Okay, so this is important here. Again, the second class is about can we detect the motion of the Earth in terrestrial experiments, and all attempts of this nature have led to a negative result. Before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult to become reconciled to this negative result for reasons now to be discussed. Then he says the inherited prejudices about time and space did not allow any doubt to arise as the prime importance of the Galilean transformation for changing from one body of reference to another. So what he says there is that before relativity, it was very difficult to reconcile with all the failed attempts to detect the orbital motion of the Earth in any terrestrial experiment, and this is because there was an inherited prejudice about how we understood space and time. So then when we go down, because he's explaining some of the difference, we're going to go down to, he says, in one of the most notable of these attempts. So we go down to the bottom of that paragraph, the next paragraph, in one of these most notable attempts. What attempts is he talking about? In one of, because like people like Mattoon who's in here, he'll say stuff like, oh no, he's only talking about Michelson-Morley here. No, he says in one of the most notable of these attempts, plural. And if we go up, what attempts is he talking about? All attempts to detect the motion of the Earth. He says, we have already remarked
Aries failure is another.
Section 5 that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. Okay, so we go down and he says one of the most notable of these attempts, he's referring to the attempts to detect the orbital motion with terrestrial experiment. And one of the most notable of these attempts, Michelson devised a method which appears as though it must be decisive. He then explains the actual experiment, right, with two mirrors arranged on a rigid body, et cetera, et cetera. Then he comes down and says, although the estimated time difference between these two times is exceedingly small because of the Earth is orbiting at 30 kilometers a second, we should get a fringe shift. He said, although the estimated difference between these two times is exceedingly small, Michelson and Morley performed an experiment involving interference in which this difference should have been clearly detectable. But the experiment gave a negative result, a fact very perplexing to physicists. Lorentz and Fitzgerald rescued the theory from this difficulty by assuming that the motion of the body relative to the ether produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion, the amount of contraction being just sufficient to compensate for the difference in time mentioned above. Meaning, there should have been a missing time difference. There should have been a time difference between the two beams if the Earth is orbiting around the sun. And even though it's really small, this interferometry was so precise that it should have decisively been able to measure it. So it didn't. Everyone was confused. So then Lorentz and Fitzgerald proposed a solution to this difficulty by saying, oh, well, the actual apparatus itself contracted just the perfect amount, just the sufficient amount to compensate for that missing time difference. Okay. Then it says here, comparison with this discussion in section 11 shows that also from the standpoint of the theory of relativity, this solution of the difficulty was the right one. But on the basis of the theory of relativity, the method of interpretation is incomparably more satisfactory. So again, if we actually properly...
Where did he go?
Yeah, I just got kicked. Okay.
Somebody kicked him from that server a couple times during this conversation. This was interesting. This is a Flurf server. And I don't know who, but somebody kicked him.
In conclusion, right, if we're actually properly addressing what he's saying, he says very clearly, right, that when it comes to the attempt to measure the Earth, like the reference to the question whether or not the motion of the Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments, we've already remarked that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. Before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult to become reconciled to this negative result. So he's saying
terrestrial.
That the theory of relativity is what reconciled the issue of that negative result, right? So
yes.
But let's think about this in relation to what we were talking about, right?
So word saying that the theory of relativity is crucial in explaining
NASA shill Witsit misreading hour. Now, I mentioned Einstein says very clearly that Lorentz and Fitzgerald were trying to save the ether.
The result of Michelson-Morley.
Okay, but let's talk about what we were talking about originally with regards to your point.
That's what we were talking about originally. Can you please address that you said that wasn't true, and I just proved that it is true coming from Einstein himself?
This is a one-on-one here, or
yeah,
because
yes, it's a one-on-one. Yeah, for now.
Yeah. So basically, this is what I would say. So at the end of the day, what we are looking at here is a statement about, yes, there's an influence of Michelson-Morley. And what I said in my original statement about this was that, and we can go back and check the record. So if I'm saying something that's wrong now, we'll go back and correct myself on that. That there's a contradiction between the way Einstein talks about things in the early formulation of the theory versus how he talked about it later. So Michelson-Morley certainly seems to be influential in this case. I think what is in contention was your original question was if we can measure the orbit of the Earth with an interferometer, but my issue was you were conflating that with the idea of rotation. There's nothing in this statement that says that the Earth's rotation cannot be measured by such an apparatus.
Okay, wait. And as it pertains actually started was I pointed out the difference in the orbit and the rotation in your paradigm, and that your model claims, because relativity had to come in and fix what Newtonian would have predicted by saying that the orbit is different, it's actually free falling in a linear path around the sun. Then you moved it over to
he just can't leave that one alone. He has to muck with and bring that up again. The larger frame of general relativity and the understanding of the motion instead of within our reference frame. We need to look at it from, fine, it doesn't matter. Look at it from either place. But apply the laws of physics appropriately to either place. He won't.
Relativity had nothing to do with Michelson-Morley. So if we tie it all together, it does.
I disputed your claim that it was I think you overstate the relevance of Michelson-Morley with regards to the way that Einstein talks about things in the primary sources.
He calls it the most notable attempt.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm aware of what you're saying here. But at the end of the day, like if we talk about again the difference between Newton and Einstein as it pertains to the orbit of Mercury, there's specifically a discussion of one of the points that you made was that there's something about quantification and the distinction between math and physics. Well, at the end of the day, we know that there's a causal difference between the way that orbits move closer to the sun and the way that orbits move further away from the sun. And essentially, what happens is in a lower energy state, like the Earth-Moon system, Kepler and Newton work perfectly fine. So your belief that we suddenly need to completely throw those out of the window and go to the relativistic solution because they're incompatible, I don't think is supported by the physics and the way things actually work. In fact, your identification of the orbit of Mercury as being problematic posits a validation of relativity and a distinction between when we can reduce it to the Newtonian case and when we can't. And that's observational. The mathematics is merely making a prediction of that being the case. And it turns out that relativity does a very good job at predicting that. So I'm not sure what you're trying to argue with regards to your statement about math. I mean, at the end of the day, we wouldn't have a predictive theory of gravity without a mathematical description of space-time. Because such a theory is positing the mechanism for action at a distance and instant action through the space-time, which replaces Newton's notion of an aether, which he only really posited as a sort of what-if scenario. He never formulated a theory of aetheric gravity.
No, he said it's a requirement.
Okay, but regardless, it was something that was pursued at the end.
He says it's a requirement. It's the he always goes for the quotes as if a quote from somebody, one sentence out of a multi-passage work, it is all you need to look at to see whether or not the what Newton developed was based on these things. It wasn't. And I can't see anywhere that Newton based his stuff on the existence of ether. He said he thinks ether needs to be there, but that isn't him basing it on it, right? F equals G M1 M2 over R squared. Ether's not in there. Time's not in there. It's not trying to identify those things. It's trying to it is identifying the force at a moment of time, right? At a snapshot of time. You want to have time be involved in it? You're going to need some calculus for that. Good thing Newton invented calculus. in order to apply time to figure things over time. Josh Carver, have these D-bags ever done the Cavendish experiment? I have multiple times. They suck. So no. I have seen, I can't remember who. There was a flat earther. There was a flat earther that tried to do Cavendish, sort of. I don't know. He used a chain for the torsion wire. A chain, which the point of the torsion wire is that it takes a small amount of force to twist it, right? A chain requires a large amount of force to twist it. The reason why is because you've got the links of the chain. They're connected to each other, but they're rounded, right? So you've got the rounded one here and the rounded one here. And so in order for the top one and the bottom one to come out of perpendicular, they're going to be perpendicular. They need to go uphill, right? The chain is actually going uphill, very slightly lifting the chain below it in order to rotate. They don't rotate easily. So anyway, this Flurf had used chains. I have only a memory of it. But you're right. No, they've not done Cavendish. They don't believe it's a valid mechanism. They can't, because if they did, then they would have to accept the good results of it. So what they tend to do is say things like, well, it has to be done in a vacuum. Oh, well, here it's been done in a vacuum. Oh, but there's not a perfect vacuum. Okay, but is it in enough of a vacuum that there won't be wind that's applying to it, right? It's to margin of error, right? You do it in a vacuum to get a better control of it so that your margin of error is smaller. You don't need to do it in a vacuum just to answer yes or no, does gravity exist? Does mass attract mass? The vacuum helps to get the magnitude of the mass attracting mass more precise. Flat earthers don't care about that. They don't care about the precision of measuring G, big G. Yes, Josh Garber says I used a thin wire every time, as you should, with a very small amount of torque that's needed to twist it. EOT Wash group has done great tests on gravity, says Sealion Prime. Yes, so the name there right here. This is a kind of, it's coming up as people comment a little more. So there's the Utfush effect, which is when you're traveling with the rotation of the Earth versus against the rotation of the Earth, you're increasing or decreasing centrifugal acceleration. So things will have a different weight going one direction versus the other direction. Wolfie 6020 measured this pretty nicely in a video in an airplane and got the I don't remember the precision, 2 decibels less than the gram, 1 or 2, so like 0.01 gram precision in his measurement, something like that. If you find it on his channel, you could put it in the chat here. So that's the Utfush effect. So in the University of Washington, they called it the Ut-Wash. Well, all these gravity tests that they were doing, and I have one of them on my my web page, and actually, I think in one of my challenges. So all right, so here is here's my mc2.net/G. Give it to here. I think it's near the top here. Oh, it's this one here. Gundlach and Merkowitz at University of Washington, August 2002. They provided little videos of the devices actually moving. Pretty low resolution, but this shows over time that it's moving. This is a pretty cool way to do it too, because the whole apparatus is rotating, and this is to negate different things in the environment, right? So there's a wall right behind it. So will the wall impart a little bit of a little bit of gravitational acceleration for the things? Yes, it will. But if you rotate it all the way around and you take measurements in all directions around that, then it cancels them all out. So here's another video of it happening. Now this was done inside a vacuum chamber, so of course you can't see it while it's inside the vacuum chamber. So here's the paper right here from 2000. Now here's the interesting thing. 2019, was this an updated version maybe? I don't know. I used the value here, 6.674215 in my challenge, which currently is on pause. So here is what was the number? 6.674215. Right there. So in my challenge, that's the one I use. I used that value for G, and then the value, the Earth's mass is this 5.972245, again from this same paper. Yeah, so the sun, that's the Earth's mass. There it is. Right there. So I use this in my challenge. So there you go. All right. We're right at an hour. Let's see if we can get to a breaking point here.
As a description for the natural law.
We don't even need it. Logically, it is a requirement. Do you understand it's a requirement if there's no time variable in the equation?
Well, what we're saying is there has to be some mechanism for transmitting action at a distance. Now, whether we call that aether or whether we call that space-time, in the constructive language of Newton, doesn't really matter. Because Newton did not
say that.
Well, yes, because that's the case. What is the
there's a fundamental difference in the ether in the ether framework up to the point of relativity and relativity. Einstein says that there must be an ether.
Are you hearing a baby crying in the background?
Only in that space must be endowed with physical properties. Einstein actually basically throws his hand up and says he doesn't even actually comprehend how that works. He doesn't comprehend how you have a medium that isn't like any ponderable medium. It isn't substantive. It isn't actual, but it still somehow has physical properties.
What do you say about materiality of ether? Because I recall you saying that he permitted the notion of ether being immaterial.
Immaterial, yeah, but that's not non-physical or substantive material.
Okay, but there's not the same definitions. What is immaterial and what is physical?
Material is what we can physically, tangibly touch. Okay,
is that the case?
Yeah. What do you mean? Is that the case? So
I distinguish material and immaterial on the basis of epistemology. It's supernatural versus natural.
Yeah.
So that's
wrong, and that you can say that if you want to. But
that's wrong. Hey, everybody, Witsit gets to decide what's right and what's wrong. But what do you say about the ether?
Ether is an immaterial background medium of pure potential. It cannot be quantified or measured intrinsically.
Cannot be quantified or measured, therefore it's outside science. It's a religious position.
Ether's not science.
That's right, ether's not science. It's religion.
Supernatural is attributed to a force which is not limited to natural law, okay? And that doesn't necessarily apply to something that is immaterial. But this doesn't even matter. This doesn't even matter, bro, because you're avoiding the point, though, which is that it's very simple. What I'm saying is just a fact. Newtonian orbit doesn't work. If you were to take Newton's orbit, right, which is the idea that gravity is a force. The sun is really big. Of course, Newton thought the sun was in the center of the entire universe. Okay.
What? Like in
Newton
terms of
Newton thought the sun was in the center of the entire universe. They didn't even know about how big "quote unquote" space was at the time.
What does the
As if it matters. Who cares?
Copernican principle say?
That the Earth does not occupy a special or unique position, and this is not even what does that have to do with what I'm saying? What I'm saying is they thought the sun was in the center of the entire universe.
Hold on, because I think we need to be clear about the statement of the Copernican principle at the time of Newton for you to make that statement. So, what is your primary source that suggests that the Copernican principle by the time of Newton was a statement purely about the position of the Earth and not the position of the solar system? Because those are two very different things.
Okay, it's well known that in the writings of Copernicus, who obviously lived in the late 1400s to mid 1500s, and then into the mid 1600s, which is where Newton comes in, that they believed that the sun was in the center of the entire universe. You can go look at his models, even his diagrams that he drew. And this is because they didn't have strong enough telescopes to make these observations out into quote deep and deep space to know that actually the universe is way bigger than our local system. And this is why Mach come around in the late 1800s to say, wait, we overlooked the fact that Newton assumed the sun was in the center of the entire universe. If you actually take Newton's dynamics and apply it to a ton of mass outside the solar system, there's a dynamic equivalence of a stationary Earth. Right, so this is well known. This isn't even disputed.
Here's the thing. Then we can start getting into like a whole bunch of other topics. So I think we need to get to.
Well, you pushed back on that the simple thing. It doesn't matter. This is the point I'm trying to make, right? I always said that as a side note. Like, yeah, Newton thought the sun was the center of the whole universe. That's just a fact. So did Copernicus, whatever. They were actually sun worshippers. But like, I don't care. So was.
They're actually sun worshippers. No, they're not. Oh my gosh. He just likes to chuck that in as if it changes anything. Whether or not somebody is a sun worshiper doesn't change the empirical evidence about it. It's a red herring. So Witsit has a problem with Newtonian orbits. There are thousands of artificial satellites in orbit around the Earth. Therefore, thousands of experiments that verify Newton's laws. Oh, but he throws in some other thing. Okay. He has said that he doesn't disagree with orbits. How do they happen? No clue. He doesn't know. But they happen. It's the same special pleading he does for everything for Flat Earth. He doesn't have an explanation for anything at all. But he's like, oh, it works because vague ideas. So he believed in satellites. That's an existential crisis for his position. It totally is. Yeah, kinematic equivalence. The one thing that he really misses is when he talks about geocentrism. He's getting into that more coming up, which we'll cover soon. He says it matches perfectly. Oh gosh. So the kinematic equivalence. And the dynamical equivalence. These are things that he has used to say brought you all the way to flat Earth, but he has stopped saying that because he got pressed on it. The problem is, as soon as you start using that, which is about right here is where he's going to switch over into basically trashing flat Earth in favor of geocentric globe Earth in this discussion here. When you have to do that, that's incompatible. It's funny. And so in the chat here, I start totally ripping on him other flat earthers saying he's getting rid of flat Earth. He's ditching flat Earth. He's going for a geocentric globe, which I've been saying for a long time. So, it's a step in the right direction, but he's still a douchebag. I don't really want douchebags, right? Like if Oakley suddenly started wanting to not be a lying piece of filth, I'd be like, no, you're a piece of filth no matter what. So stay over there. Stay a flat earther. So do I want Austin to not be a flat earther? No, I'm happy with a douchebag like him being a flat earther. Right? He's an awful person. So like people like Ranty, Rachy, Seek Truth, Speak Truth, Sean G. I'm glad they got out. They're good people. So, all right. Isider74 says he doesn't read anything other than his precious cherries. Absolutely. iSounder74 says, can we get a moment of silence for James Earl Jones? Yeah, James Earl Jones, I think 91, died. So I think we can have, we'll first start with the, before the moment of silence, we'll first start with this.
Yes, my master.
All right. Yeah, 91, I think. So there's the moment of silence for James Earl Jones. So here's the plan. I have a little more flexibility in my schedule now than I did before. I know I had been doing a few more live streams, and it was, I think it's going to be a little bit of a more consistent thing that I can do 2 or 3 a week. So I'm planning on tomorrow, 6 p.m. Central Time, and then Thursday at 10 p.m. Central Time. So not absolutely every week, but certainly more often. And I will attempt to, because I can know a little farther ahead of time, I will be planning on doing a little more collaborations with like Witsit, with Craig, and other people. So if you have a channel and you want to do something, let me know. That time works for me. So let's see here. I got that right. Anyway, we have one more hoedown to come. Get out your straw hats. Get out your alfalfa to stick in your mouth and chew on. Get your cowboy boots on, because we've got one more for the night as we head out. Oh, I'll read this from General E. Shady. Says, Witless is available on Alibaba in bulk. 3 cents if you buy 10,000 or more. Just search for Premium Word Salad Maker. The free gift is earplugs. Thank you for that, General E. Shady. Dr. Nimrod, I want to listen to it before I play it. So, Sealion Prime. So we'll finish this, by the way. We'll finish this. He says, Peter the Globe Prover and me are going to debate Shane and Alan on relativity on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on Jaronism. 8 p.m. Eastern, that's 7 p.m. Central. 3 hours before I start. So maybe I won't be able to watch it, but maybe we could do an after show. I don't know if you're interested. Let me. I'd love to host that if it's after show worthy. Sealion Prime, let me know if you'd be interested. And I can't listen to at least most of it because I will be playing Ultimate Frisbee for a good chunk of that time anyway, and then doing some stuff with the family. So anyway, people, thank you very much. Get your banjos ready. Here it comes.
What?
Why did it freeze? Why did it do that? Don't do that to me. It's like, I don't know if it worked. It's I know the fix. I just don't do it. All right, we're gonna try it again.
What is a full moon and what is a new moon on your model?
Probably like a magnetic cycle, and just like the center of a Ferrell cell image of a magnet.
I think it's probably like a magnetic cycle, just like the center of a Ferrell cell spiral. Image of a magnet It's just black in the middle. It's actually pure inertia, not just a little.
Yeehaw!
In the ferrocell image of a magnet, it actually goes into its inertial state, then charges back up. It becomes like etherically displaced. Yeah. You start to see it charge up once more, and it goes back like it did before. Once it becomes like etherically spaced, you see it charge up and take its place. Oh, shucks, ain't that so? That's how moon phases work, fam. Pass the dresser. Into magnets, heart, centrifugal divergence flies, centripetal convergence pulls, defying all science. Etheric whispers sing, light and shadow blend, magnetic cycles spin, where physics seems to end. In the ferrocell image of a magnet, it actually goes into its inertial state, then charges back up. It becomes like etherically displaced. Yeehaw! Grab your partner, swing around, magnetic cycles up and down. Either song in the air, hillbilly science everywhere, cause it's like etherically displaced. Yeehaw! Yo, belly on up to the Witsit word salad buffet. Who has light vinaigrettes? It's behind the Jugger Ranch.
Then charges back up, and once it becomes like etherically displaced again, you start to see it charge up throughout a cycle, and it goes back